Hello everyone and welcome back to Beyond the Veil Tarot and Astrology. My name is Candice Marie. Thank you guys for joining me. Happy Thursday. I'm back at it with yet another video, and today we're going to be taking a look at the up and coming new moon in the sign of Aries. I'm excited to be back and talking about this. It's actually taking place on April 17th, 2026 at 27 degrees. Now, obviously, new moons are all about new things, initiating new intentions, and we're going to talk about how this is going to be impacting the collective as well as the 12 rising signs. And this is not any ordinary new moon in Aries. You guys know me. I'm going to break down the Sabian Symbols, the degree theory, and also talk to you a little bit about what this means for all of us over the better part of the next 6 months. We have a massive stellium that's going to be in Aries. That's going to be taking place pretty much mid to, the latter part of April. So mid to late April is quite intense. And we're going to be talking about what this means in this particular sign and how to make the most of one of the most powerful new moons in all of 2026. Now, if you guys are new to my channel, please do make sure that you subscribe. Click the bell button below so you can get alerts for more of my videos. I'm here on Tuesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, and Sundays trying to make sense of what's going on in the cosmos. Leave me a thumbs up if you like this video. Consider sharing. And please do drop your rising sign and let me know what new powerful intentions you guys are setting, what's happening in your life, because I'm telling you guys, April is bringing the heat. Also, if you guys want to see more about me and my work, if you guys want to book a personal reading, or if you'd like to learn astrology or get a transit calendar for your Apple or Google Calendar, click the links below, head over to beyondtheveiltarot.com. All right, there's a lot going on with this one, guys. I've been looking at this new moon and I'm like, whoa, this is really planting some powerful, powerful intentions, really making us kind of grab a helmet and pick ourselves up by the bootstraps and get serious about our future. Now, we're going to start with the basics. We're going to talk a little bit about what a new moon is and why it matters. So basically every month during the lunar cycle, we're going to see the sun and the moon that are going to come together in a specific sign. And this happens to be the first new moon of the astrological new year. So if you guys think back to mid-March, as we were coming into the end of Pisces season, the sun went into Aries and it met with Neptune and Saturn. And that was happening right around the time of the spring equinox. So that's the real new year. So this is the first new moon of this new year that'll be taking place between now and spring of 2027. So it really truly is a fresh start from that perspective of being in Aries, and it's a new moon on top of that. Now, new moons are basically when the sun and the moon are coming together in the same degree in the same sign. The sky is dark, and it basically means that the moon is invisible. And that's because we're kind of planting seeds for this new lunar cycle. So if you guys are setting intentions under this new moon, you will probably see over a 2 to 4 week period a lot of action in terms of that particular house. It's kind of hard to miss with all the other planets that are there. And it will develop into what will eventually become a full moon when we get into Libra season, when we have the sun in Libra and the moon in Aries. So we've got a 6-month working period to really see these intentions grow. Now, we really focus on setting intentions revolving around what we want to create. Obviously, Aries is the first sign of the Zodiac and it's a new moon, so it's really fresh for new beginnings and fresh starts in the area of life where Aries is. So this is where it pays to know your chart. Take a look at your chart and see which house that is. That's going to show you where all the action is going on. And we plant seeds because actions that we kind of take now will grow over the coming weeks and months. And this is also about going inward because it's a new moon. It's reflective. So it's about taking reflection before we actually make any moves or take action, and manifestational work. So anything goes. This is going to be basically a clean slate, but it's going to require a lot of work in this area over the next couple of months. So the energy of the new moon lasts approximately about 2 weeks until we get to the full moon. And the next full moon is going to be taking place, I believe, in Scorpio when the sun's in Taurus. And we want to set intentions that will unfold over, like I said, the better part of the next 6 months. And it's corresponding to both the house that it's in, that's the action in the area of your chart where you're going to see this taking place. And also we want to take into consideration the rulerships. But actually, well, there's a lot of Mars energy because Mars is going to be in Aries. So it's going to pack a little bit more of a punch. So whatever you're initiating around April 17th is going to kind of reach this culmination, probably around the full moon in Aries later this year. Now, Aries energy is something that we're all a little bit more familiar with now that we're getting into the tail end of Aries season when we have this new moon. As you guys can see, it's going to be happening around 27 degrees. So it is in the later degrees. It means it impacts everybody. This is kind of a global, decan, and it's really about mastering the self and what we're doing kind of out in the world. Aries is the first sign of the zodiac, so it is the spark of life. This is the sign that deals with initiation. It's also about being brave, pioneering, and Aries energy is about the self, more in the sense of our identity and how we assert ourselves. So even if Aries isn't your first house or you're not an Aries rising, it's still going to be about your role in that particular house. And new beginnings come from Aries. It's about being the first, fresh starts, clean slates. And it requires us to kind of tackle some of these goals while being courageous and also being brave. So we have to be willing to take risks. We have to face our fears. We will also find that this is very strongly associated with the physical state of the body because Aries is connected to the body and the energy and anything that deals with like athletics. And this is a sign notorious for independence. So we might find that it's about being more self-reliant, focusing on our own autonomy. And in order to do that, we have to really exercise a sense of self-awareness as well as leadership skills. And that's because Aries loves to take charge of the situation, be bold, be brave, and be the first. And they have a really pioneering spirit. There's a lot of passion. There's a lot of desire with Aries. It's always about, well, what do I want? What do I want to accomplish? What do I want to start? And there is a little bit of a competitive nature with this sign as well because it's ruled by Mars. And there's definitely a drive to win, to be fast and to be first. And then the darker side that we can see with kind of Martian energy is obviously, there can be a little bit more anger. There can be some aggressiveness. We can feel a little bit more assertive. So we want to find that healthy balance of expression of fire energy when we're thinking about the intentions that we're setting. Aries also rules the head, okay, both literally, so things like the headaches, the face, anything that deals with the brain, things that are connected to also inflammation, blood, and figuratively, it's about being the head of something, okay, and kind of like leading the way. So you guys know me, I'm always going to focus on, the degrees and kind of talk about that, and then we're going to get into talking about what the Sabian symbols actually mean. But I'll tell you guys, with Mars being in its home sign is going to make this pack a little bit more of a punch. And Mars rules Aries, and it brings the themes of action, drive, aggression, sexuality, willpower. So in a nutshell, new moons in Aries are really great for things like starting a new fitness routine, right? Or a physical challenge, pushing yourself to kind of step up and get a little bit more active or start something new. So if you're wanting to do something like getting ready to launch a business or a solo project, that can be a good idea under a new moon in Aries. It's also about asserting yourself in a new way. So that could be a new way of life, a new way of communicating, a new way of dressing, and taking a bold leap of faith. I think that that's going to be a big theme that's kind of connected to this new moon. And setting intentions around being more courageous and being more independent and beginning anything that requires us to really kind of take initiative. For many of us, it might feel like we have to reclaim our personal power and that we have to be a little bit more self-aware and that we have to be more finely kind of tuning some of our goals, whether that's our career, our health habits, and really feeling like we're a little bit more independent and self-reliant in the process. We may feel like we have to kind of start over also after an ending because we're coming out of Pisces season where there's been retrogrades. And now we are finally seeing that all of the planets have left Pisces. The only thing that's in Pisces now is going to be the North Node, and that's going to only be a few short weeks. So something I want you guys to know, and I've been saying this like really since last year, since we had the North Node, Saturn, Neptune, kind of in Pisces, and then recently in Pisces season with a Mercury retrograde, everything has been delayed. Everything has been held back. There's either been a sense of confusion, exhaustion, weariness about kind of stepping into the future and taking some new bold steps forward. Maybe there's been a sense of having to check more in with our intuition or our emotions, or we've just been kind of feeling like a little fearful, I think, of just like ending certain things in our life. So as if a new moon in Aries was not enough, right? We also have Mars, the ruler in this sign, Neptune, which is going to deal about our self-awareness. Saturn is going to be dealing with our own personal karma and whether or not we are maybe learning to be a little bit more cautious and like look before we leap, or if we are going to forge ahead and start new things, if we're doing it in a way that's mature, we have a vision for some of the things that we're doing. It's just very, very unusual astrology. So this is going to be a very powerful new moon. Really, it's the new moon for taking bold action, and also, I think, really fierce self-trust. Maybe we're taking action with something that we've been putting off. I really think that's what this is, and where if we've been putting things off, now we face the challenge of it feeling harder or feeling more difficult or feeling like there's a lot more weight on our shoulders and that we have to kind of go at it alone. So there's a lot of aspects that we're going to break down. We'll get into the aspects in just a second. Focusing more on just the degrees, both the degree theory and the Sabian symbols. This is taking place at 27 degrees, okay? So first of all, it's the third decan, and it's kind of getting up there with the anaretic degrees. 27, 28, 29 is kind of like, okay, we got to get this done. We had an eclipse that was around the same degrees. There was an eclipse in Aries a few years ago that was, I think in 2022, that was around 29 degrees. But this is not the same degree, but it's still close. So you might see some of the same themes. And 27 always connects and correlates with Gemini in the degree theory per Nicola's method. And Gemini energy is about duality, right? It's ruled by Mercury. So we're going to see that, first of all, it's about communication. So important messages, conversations, and information. Duality in a sense of two paths, two choices, both, I think action and thinking. It'll also touch on things like siblings, neighbors, short trips, travel, learning, maybe movement in our environment, more curiosity and kind of gathering knowledge, media, writing, and also the mind. So as we apply that to the themes of Aries, we're going to see that there's going to be, I think, a lot more of us learning to be more assertive, both in how we're thinking and how we're communicating. Yes, the downside is that people can be a little bit more frustrated, a little bit more kind of hostile, a little bit more aggressive and mean, but it's also about us getting to a breaking point where we're looking at things and we're going, okay, I've put this off for so long and now it's starting to impact me personally. And I've been reluctant to make a change, or I've been reluctant to kind of get out of my own way. And now I have no other choice but to do it now. So we're going to feel kind of like that pressure. I think that Aries rules everything from, war to conflict to quick initiations to anything that deals with our own personal identities. So when we think about this being at 27 degrees, something that we're going to be thinking about, or what's kind of coming up during the new moon, is speaking up boldly, speaking our mind, standing up for ourselves, being a little bit more kind of like independent in our thoughts and also how we're taking action. Learning something new that inspires us, that empowers us, and helps us be a little bit more self-sufficient and self-reliant. So that could be new skills. It could be anything that's kind of connected to self-defense could be Aries. It could also be that we are now speaking out more boldly against, in kind of international conflict, people speaking out against like war, for example. Media definitely eating up a lot of what's kind of going on with the news cycle and trying to kind of incentivize people and kind of rile them up as well. And I think that we're going to see that this is going to be really strong for those of you guys who want to write or start a communication project. Maybe you want to start your own blog, your own, website. Maybe you want to be starting to journal, anything like that. Citizen journalists, I think, is going to be a big thing. Like people who are going out there, they're interviewing people, they're, kind of getting footage in real time of what's going on. And you're going to see a lot of people who are just like out there trying to kind of get the news out about the happenings that are kind of happening around the world. This is also going to be about conversations that require courage and a sense of not just confidence, but also maturity, because Saturn is going to be in this sign. And asserting our ideas and making a choice between two paths. So Mercury will be here as well, guys. And that's really interesting that this is going to be at a Gemini degree, and Mercury is just coming out of a conjunction with Neptune, where people are going to be like, oh my God, what do I do? Who's going to save me? And like the truth is that we're now having this new moon that's about saving ourselves and being a little bit more self-aware and aware of our surroundings, and less about the problem, more about the solution and how we're going to be able to kind of take action and find solutions for ourselves. So the message really here is that your words have a lot of fire, right? And that I think if we're speaking our truth, if we're beginning conversations that we've been avoiding, if we're, taking some sense of accountability, and this is going to be actions, and words kind of coming together. If we say we're going to do something, we're actually doing it. We're not just talking about it anymore. And really letting our mind lead in the direction of where we need to go. And that instinctual knowing, right? Fire is really good for that, of just like, I got to do this. I got to do this now. So there's going to be this kind of pressing on us, I think, to, well, initiate something new. So there's a fire that's going to be under our butts during this new moon. Now, astrologically, we round up with the Sabian symbols, so I would actually read 28 because this is 27 degrees and 28 minutes. So I'm going to read you guys the Sabian symbol. And for 28 degrees of Aries, it's a large disappointed audience. The theme is nothing lasts forever. The symbol speaks to disillusionment that can occur when too great of dependence is placed on things external to the self. The image of large disappointed audience alludes to an expectation that wasn't met, when something that is being enjoyed ends prematurely, or when something that is anticipated is expected to occur fails to materialize. The symbol speaks to the unpredictabilities of life and the changes of taste of preference. This is one of the images Mark Jones described as a reverse symbol, or carrying a negative connotation, and he commented on the danger of an individual becoming disillusioned by the result of making the momentary mood of the masses by any proper guide for the values should be pursued. In a modern term, this degree emphasizes being true to the self. At its highest, it represents courage to do what's best for the self and resist emotional appeals and pressures from others. Negative can be self-annihilation through pessimistic thinking and false perceptions of rejection. The accent is on shift in attitudes and values. What worked yesterday may not hold up the same way today. Your greatest advantage lies in being self-reliant and pleasing yourself. Think independently and objectively. Guard against letting criticism, disapproval, or opinions of others get you down or stop you from doing what you know is right for you. Avoid self-pity and negative thinking. Stepping stones is disattunement, disillusionment, dissatisfaction, dismay, frustration, letdown, discouragement, unpredictability, disappointment, lack of harmony. Okay, things I know we don't want to hear. But I do think that even if that was not the Sabian symbol, I think some of these things would still materialize. And I think that because we are going to see Mercury, which is conjunct Neptune, which, on the positive, we can be more kind of in tune with our higher self and knowing what we need to do, but still confused, feeling like we're drained, or, we're not knowing which direction to kind of go in. And then we also see that Mars is applying to a conjunction with Saturn, which is important because that can also feel like we're getting frustrated because there's delays, there's things that are slowing down, there's limitations, there's kind of blocks. And then the grand finale is, well, we've got the new moon that's conjunct Chiron. So we're all going to get a little taste of what Chiron and Aries is on a very personal level. But my interpretation of looking at some of the aspects and some of the planets and where they are and kind of applying that to, this new moon is I would be like, look, the symbol really speaks to, I think, the tension between self-expression and external validation, right? The audience is disappointed. So there's a performer and someone who has stepped into the spotlight, and then there's an audience that expected something very different. And then that person could then in turn feel rejected. And that's very much like a Chiron theme. So I think the key themes of this new moon is that we have to have the courage to kind of be ourselves despite criticism. I think that's number one. And recognizing and realizing that we can't make everybody happy. We can't please everyone. We may feel like we're facing judgment with some of the intentions that we're setting when it comes to stepping into our personal power, but we have to perform our truth anyway. We have to say what we have to say anyway. And it's going to ruffle some feathers, and there's going to be some people who are not necessarily going to agree, but that feeling of, well, I still need to do what I have to do. This is me. I'm not going to change who I am just because of the reaction that I'm getting from the audience. And we can see the Sabian symbols materialize in real life. I think that this is also about disappointment as a sense of redirection. And sometimes, what others expect isn't what you're meant to deliver. Maybe it's going to be something very different. And the disappointment isn't necessarily your failure. It's more a sign that you're being authentic. And it can also be about, kind of recognizing where we've had a tendency to kind of perform or people please because we want the response to be positive. We want the followers, the recognition. We want people who are going to be liking what we have to say. But there is some friction, and it gets to a point where it's yeah, but that's not me. So when then you decide to kind of course correct and go in a different direction, because remember, Gemini is about two paths, and you decide to go more with what's in alignment with yourself, it can be very surprising to other people and how other people are kind of relating to you now that your identity is kind of shifting. This also means that you have to own your stage. Aries energy here is going to say, I'm going to do it my way. And I think that it has to be your show. So you can't please everyone. So you have to focus on pleasing yourself. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I think that, you know, Aries energy is inherently selfish, and that's kind of the point. They're the first sign of the zodiac. They have to think about what they desire, where they want to go, what they want to do, what they're hoping to kind of manifest for themselves, and then they go to work on it. And we may find that to some extent, you know, this is positive, because if we're doing what's best for us, we know that this is what we have to do for us. And that could be in your life personally, that could be in your relationships, your job, you know, your living situation, whatever. But it'll magnify out in the world that if we are actually not doing what's best for us, then we're going to be people pleasing. And then we're going to be the ones who are going to be kind of feeling the wounding or the identity issues or kind of the separation as a result of that. And that's because of Chiron. And I think it's going to be the things we say. I think it's going to be how we say it. I think it's also going to be whether or not we are really speaking from the heart. Obviously, the sun and the moon are conjunct, and like the sun is exalted in Aries. So it's very much about what we feel we need to create or what we must do. Some of you guys are definitely going to see a gap between expectation and reality. I think this new moon may potentially highlight like where you've been, not just performing for others, but not necessarily honoring yourself. And so it gives you the opportunity to kind of bring everything back to, okay, me, who am I? What role do I play in this? Even if it's not in the first house, it's what am I doing? What is my required, you know, kind of participation or the direction of where I'm going with things? How is this impacting like the world? And I think to do this, we have to reclaim our own narrative. You know, if people are disappointed, you know, maybe their expectations were wrong and they were not necessarily your expectation, not your expression, but what people were expecting from you. And it's going to allow you to kind of like adjust things a little bit throughout the next several months. In application to this new moon, I would say we want to set intentions around showing up authentically, even if it disappoints other people. Releasing that need for approval. Maybe being the performer in our own life. I would call this like main character energy, you know, even if you have to, like I said, ruffle a few feathers or feel like you have to be a little bit more selfish right now. And this is really about facing the audience or really like the world and doing it with your true self. Maybe starting something that's for you and not necessarily for applause. So this is where we ask ourselves, okay, where have I been performing to kind of meet expectations? And what would happen if I just did what I wanted to do, instead of feeling like I have to do what other people expect me to do? I mean, for me personally, this has been interesting because, like, you know, 27 degrees is basically that Sabian symbol is my point of fortune. And so over the last couple of years, I've had like the North Node on my point of fortune at this Sabian symbol. I've had Chiron going through my point of fortune at this symbol. I've had eclipses that were hitting that a couple of years ago. And I feel like, yeah, I've definitely felt a lot of these things. It's a lot of like, well, what do I want to do versus like what does other people kind of like expect, and like both the pros and the cons of being different, kind of forging my own path, especially with how I connect to an audience, you guys, but also like in comparison to what other people are doing. And so there's been the blessing, I think, of being a little bit more authentic personally with my work. On the other hand, there's been the curse of being like, well, there's gonna be a lot of people who aren't gonna like what you have to say, right? There's gonna be a lot of people who are gonna find what you have to say to be kind of like disappointing, because it's not going to sound like what some of the other astrologers are kind of saying, or people who are going to get kind of angry and like hostile about, you know, some of my perspectives and my views. And it's been good. It's been a learning experience, but I'm excited to see the new moon kind of come through, because it tells me that collectively, I think a lot of other people are going to start opening up to, hey, if I am a little bit too people pleasing or a little bit too understanding, or if I'm always considering other people before myself, where does this land me in a bit of like a tricky kind of situation or a predicament where, you know, I'm not feeling good, I'm not feeling confident, or I'm having physical issues, or, you know, it's really dimming my light and it's not allowing me to be an individual. I'm kind of getting lopped into just what everybody else is doing. So there's some medicine that's kind of within that. The major aspects are going to determine how this new moon is going to play out. And as you guys know, the aspects are going to kind of tell me a little bit about how the immediate next 2 to 4 weeks and then ultimately the next 6 months are actually going to go. And, You guys probably watch my content because you know that I'm just very matter of fact. You know, I try to just kind of say it like it is. This is not an easy new moon. This is a new moon that I think we're going to look back in six months time, and we're going to realize that it's required us a lot of like blood, sweat, and tears, right? And so I say that because we have this massive stellium that's in Aries. And the positive, because there are some positives, is that, you know, Mars is in its home sign, right? So we've got a stellium, which is basically 3 or more planets that are in one sign. So we've got 7 between Neptune, Mercury, Mars, Saturn, Chiron, the moon, and also the sun. So all of this fire concentrated in one area in itself, even if there was not a new moon, was going to be like a blockbuster several week period of time. And a lot of you guys are watching this kind of like in early April, and you're going to be feeling this energy that's really setting up since the full moon that we had in Libra with that polarity. So the first half of the month is like we're starting to feel this build, and we're realizing what's kind of breaking down relationship wise, you know, what hasn't been supporting us or what's not working, or maybe where, you know, other people are giving us feedback or they're telling us what we need to work on or what we need to do. And so just keep that in mind that, you know, yes, there is a period of a lot of concentrated kind of pressure, but with that pressure, it's going to give you the opportunity to kind of realize where you either need to be better about your boundaries, your goals, and also just your actions, and where there is maybe a sense of also recognizing and realizing that maybe it's not about being better, it's that now you're fine-tuning things and you're going, okay, now I have to kind of crank it up a notch, and I have to be better about my boundaries and what I will or will not do, because I'm so focused on kind of harnessing this energy to have this new beginning. Having this much energy concentrated in fire has its pros and its cons. I think it's good because there's a lot more energy, there's a lot more action, there's a lot more movement, we can actually get things done. And it's about taking action, right? Leading with courage, starting new chapters, asserting our individual will, and pioneering new territory. But it can also be really challenging because we could see people are going to be quick to make moves, which, you know, Saturn can definitely kind of slap the hands a little bit and be like, you shouldn't have done it so quickly, or you shouldn't have been so aggressive, or you shouldn't have been so selfish. And I think a lot of people are going to feel very, they're going to feel like they're a little between a rock and a hard place. And it's like, how much is too much? You know, am I being mean, or am I being assertive and maintaining my boundaries? Am I being productive, or am I just kind of like being chaotic and like throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks? So there's a lot of energy that we need to balance with some of the other planets that are kind of coming into play other than just the new moon. I would say that this much Aries energy feels to me like rocket fuel, right? And it can also bring this sense of excitement just as quickly as it can bring impatience, aggression, and burnout if we're not channeling it wisely. I think the biggest focus that I would have is that I always look at what's going on with the ruler of the moon, which in this case is Mars, and then I'm going to look at if there's any other close aspects that are taking place with the new moon, and we have both of those things. Number one is, you know, with a new moon conjunct Chiron and Aries, you know, especially if you're somebody who has anything 25, 26, 27, 28 degrees of Aries, you are going to be feeling this the most. Not only is it a new moon that's going to be kind of conjunct these degrees for you, which is like a fresh start, but it's also going to be happening while you're going through a Chiron transit. So you've been dancing with Chiron for like the past year or so anyway, so a lot of these things are not new. But Chiron is the wounded healer. This is an asteroid, you know, he was a centaur. And in Aries, it's about healing our wounds revolving around identity and self-worth, maybe the right to exist and take up space, being too much or being not enough, and maybe fear of starting, fear of leading, or kind of being the first, and wounds that come from kind of like asserting ourselves. So when we have this new moon that's conjunct Chiron, it's a healing new beginning, and that's the positive in all of this. Maybe you're starting from scratch. Maybe you're starting from wisdom, and maybe the pain that you've experienced now becomes your power. And we're here to transmute that to be able to heal ourselves and also teach other people how to do the same. So the intention I would set around this new moon would be like, I begin again, right? I'm carrying my healing as my strength. Certainly Chiron's taught me that. I feel like with some of the Chiron stuff, especially because it's been hitting my 10th house Lord, I think a lot of it's been about teaching other people through my experiences that I've had. A lot of it's relationally, so it's like one-on-one with my clients, and how that translates into what's going on in my career. And also talking to other people about some of the issues that I've had and some of the wounding I've been dealing with, so other people can kind of resonate and be like, yeah, I've had some of the same stuff going on. Okay, it's not just me. And then teach them their role in that. So I think like with this new moon conjunct Chiron, it gives us this opportunity where it can be very potent for anyone who has felt wounded in their sense of self. If you have felt like the oddball, the black sheep, the odd man out, you know, if you've been different, then you're really given the opportunity to align with that identity in a positive way rather than feeling victimized or wounded or sick or injured. It's more about being like, okay, yes, I carry this scar. It is what it is. It's part of my identity, you know, and it's really about including those scars rather than feeling like you have to hide them and carrying them almost like it's like a badge of honor, you know, like, yes, I've been through that trial or I've been through that physical situation or whatever, and it's part of who I am. And I don't identify as a victim. I actually identify as somebody who is a survivor. So with Mars, you know, being in Aries, some of the other aspects that we look at is like Mars is sandwiched between Neptune, which can really kind of zap our energies and also make us feel like a little like confused, and then Mercury, which is the mind. So like the mind is both kind of like out of it, but also on fire. And Mars is very close to Saturn, which is limiting. But the one real positive aspect Mars is making, because we want to make lemonade, is it is in a sextile to Pluto and Aquarius. The same sextile that we saw just briefly here over this last month between Saturn and Pluto. And so with Mars, you know, moving through the sign of Aries in its home sign, it's very powerful. It's very direct. This is unstoppable energy, and it's forming a sextile to Pluto, the planet of transformation, power, and deep change. So this aspect is similar to what we've seen kind of like in late March with the Saturn-Pluto sextile. It's allowing Pluto and Mars to work together. And these are like the bad boys in astrology, right? Anything that deals with blood, guts, glory, you know, death, rebirth, intense power and transformation, at least they're in a sextile. So this is the opening sextile since they were conjunct here a few months ago, where there was just a lot of concentrated power and conflict going on, I think, like within the collective, within politics, Aquarius, within social groups, networks, all that stuff. So now that they sextile, this is about empowered action. It's about now our moves having much bigger impact. What we do individually, how this is impacting the transformation of what's going on with the collective future, Pluto and Aquarius. It can mean that we have to have more strategic, you know, kind of power and maybe transformation through decisive action. I think Mars conjunct Saturn is also saying, like, be careful what you decide to start now. The pro is that it could have long-lasting results, whether you're starting a new fitness routine, you're launching a new business, you're starting a new job, there's a new chapter of your life happening. It can be really powerful and very supportive, but it's going to require a lot of work, a lot of effort. This also means that willpower will be amplified. So it's incredible drive, lots of determination. For some of us, we're going to feel like it's a lot of sexual energies, it's a lot of creative energies. It's just potent life force energy. Whenever you see Mars and Pluto, they're in aspect to each other. And it's spelling out collective transformation, where your individual action now contributes to a larger change. So some of you guys might be feeling like, I'm just one person, what can I do? But you're going to be surprised what happens over the next 6 months over over the internet and the stuff that we see out in the world, where one person can kind of strike the match for a massive collective transformation. So you may have ideas, you may have goals, you may have things that you want to do. It could be startups, new businesses, ways that you're living your life and what you're doing, and you're holding yourself to this higher standard because you're hoping to see that reverberate out into the world, that other individuals are going to wake up and also kind of grow up, mature, and like get the show in the road. I think with Pluto and Aquarius, there's this sense that, you know, our personal courage contributes to collective liberation, right? Arguably. Your bravery matters beyond just you. So it's not just about you, it's about your morals, your goals, your actions, and where you're standing up, and it can actually spark like a revolution that can be happening, it can be helping the masses. The downside of this is like Mars is coming into conjunction with Saturn. And so, you know, Saturn is very much throwing on the brakes, and he's just like, think before you take action. Think before you decide that you want to do something, you know, too hot, too quick, too fast. If you're acting out of frustration, anger, or aggression, Saturn is not going to reward that. So on the flip side, although it can be a lot of concentrated power, it can also say that there is like a karmic reckoning that is coming for individuals, Aries. That if we are doing things that are mean, hurtful, harmful, if we're injuring, killing, or doing anything that is going to be combative, both physically, Mars, but also mentally or psychologically, Mercury, Neptune, everything can be deemed as a threat, right? And so like we will see swift consequences for people who are not keeping their cool, which is not something that Aries energy is really known for being able to do. I think that, when I look at this, I would just really focus on your action is just not transforming your life. The things you say, the things you do, it's going to have a collective impact and effect. Now, Mars conjunct Saturn in Aries, we've got a debilitated Saturn, obviously. Part of the lessons of Saturn in Aries is about patience. It's about maturity. It's about not having like knee-jerk reactions to things. And, Mars wants to go and Saturn says not so fast. So we could see a slowdown that's kind of happening in some capacity. Saturn can be work. It can also be dealing with governments. It can be dealing with leadership. And this is incredibly productive, like I said, when it's used wisely. So my thought on, even outside of the new moon, I was thinking about like the 17th through the 21st is where all of us are going to need a little bit better disciplined action and not being impulsive, being strategic. And that's where I think, Mars and Aries and kind of Aries energy versus Scorpio energy is so interesting because Aries is just like fight, in your face, raw, let's do it right now. And Scorpio has a tendency to be a little bit more strategic. They're very art of war. It could be more kind of like behind the scenes and things that can be a little bit more intense and also kind of like mystical and magical. And Aries is what's in your face. So there's going to be some things that are going to come up for us that we're going to be like, this is a problem. And I'm getting in my own way, literally, because Neptune's involved. And so we have to kind of look at things and go, okay, what can I do step by step without feeling defeated and without feeling burnt out? So much of this with Chiron being involved is going to be about health issues and healing. With Mercury being involved to a conjunction with Neptune and Mars, I think the discussion is going to be about mental health issues, where people are really suffering and it's materializing as like conflict or even like aggressiveness and like people getting wounded or injured. I think a lot of it's going to be the collective consciousness and everybody's reaction to war, conflict, how it's impacting people, where people are becoming more angry, agitated, divisive. It's almost like people are looking at this as like it's an event where you pick sides or you pick teams, and like the more destructive qualities that can have on us mentally, physically, but also like spiritually as well. I think that for us as well, we're going to be looking at building something long lasting. Like I like Mars Saturn aspects where we know that we can't have it right now, but we know if we apply the persistence and also the motivation and the maturity and the willing to know exactly when and how to strike or how to like play something out over time, it can actually become fortified. And so, we could build something long lasting. It's effort that is going to allow us to really focus on creating structure, but we have to pace ourselves. Like Rome was not built overnight, right? So I would look at this more as not where I want to be right now. Where do I want to be in 6 months' time? That could mean in your job. That could mean financially. It could mean in your relationships. It could mean in terms of a physical transformation. I think a lot of people are going to feel very incentivized to get more active and to be moving and to be taking back control of their health, with Mercury and Mars kind of being there, also with a moon, that's going to be conjunct Chiron, where they're going to get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they're going to go, okay, you know what? Now it's becoming too painful to stay this way. I must do something. And then Saturn is really kind of calling us into it. And it's saying, okay, we're going to do it slowly over time. And it'll be very relational. So this new moon is going to play out very strongly, right? When we see Mars come into this degree later in the month of May, probably going into June. Mercury is going to hit that a few weeks later. And it's saying that there will be a lot of reactivations. And like I'm going to tell you guys that fire moves very quickly. So what you start now will pick up momentum, even though it's going to take some kind of time to strategize and plan. And then when we start seeing some of the aspects like with Mercury and like Saturn eventually kind of getting to these points, which won't be for like another year, it's going to show us where we could be stronger, more independent, more self-sufficient. And it's got great energy for entrepreneurs. I think that's the positive of this. If you want to have a job or you want to work for yourself, or if you're wanting to initiate something new or you want to be entrepreneurial, it's great for that. If you're wanting to become more physically active, if you want to be training, if you want to be weightlifting, if you want to be getting cut, if you want to be focusing on building muscles, it's great for that. And in a way, Saturn will reward Mars if it's willing to continue the work. So it'll look different for all of your charts. Just know that it's serious when it comes to new beginnings and starting something that you're seriously committed to in the long run. Not where you see yourself in 2 or 4 weeks, maybe where you see yourself in 6 months, but where do you see yourself next year? And know that this will test your will with Mars and Saturn in conjunction. You know, are you truly ready for this? And it could be, are you ready to rumble? You know, Mars and Saturn, are you really ready for this fight? Or are you really ready to show up and do the physical required hard work and labor to satisfy Saturn's demands? So for me, I mean, I've looked at this and I've said this with Saturn and Aries just in a nutshell for the next 2 years. I'm like, this is not a marathon, right? I mean, this is a marathon. It's not a sprint. And we want to focus on, you know, really with this new moon, not being about instant gratification. It's about beginning something that you build over a long period of time. And that can be hard, right? I think like, especially, you know, Saturn and Aries and Neptune and Aries is teaching us that we're not just going to immediately get the things that we want. Saturn and Neptune taught us, oh, if you just meditate, if you just manifest, if you just, you know, like visualize things, you know, things are going to happen. I'm going to tell you guys now that's not the case. This is about your manifestations in action. This is about the things that you're doing to manifest your dreams. It's about the actions you're taking every morning, your morning routine, also that connection with the mind, body, and the spirit, and getting everything in alignment so that way you can really kind of like lead the charge forward. Now, I would say the intention here is about starting with commitment. What are you committing to? What are you committing to that you love? Mars is at a 5. What are you committing to in terms of having fun, taking risks, you know, maybe things that deal with romance, things that connect to living in your purpose and being kind of joyful. Then building that with discipline because you know that your action can create this like long-lasting structure. Now, Mercury's all in the mix too. I mean, this is all happening within about, 5 degrees of each other. So that's very strong. Mercury is the mind, right? It's traveling, learning, communicating, you know, tied to that South Node in Virgo. And so this is where Mercury conjunct Neptune also is interesting because Mercury, Mars is very quick moving mindset, you know, very fast. And then with Mercury connect Neptune, it's like we're kind of more in a daze. It's kind of like Mercury and Pisces. And this is where mind meets mysticism, right? Through thought, through communication. So with the conjunction of Neptune, dreams, intuition, and illusions, what it creates is inspired thinking. So it's going to be about downloads, visions, creative ideas, getting outside of the box. Spiritual communication, like channeling, prayer, meditation, you know, that kind of stuff. Affirmations would be really strong under this new moon. And the potential for confusion. And I think there's going to be a lot of confusion around media, around health and health practices, around things that are kind of connected to the narrative revolving around what is healthy, what is happening with job numbers, what is happening with war efforts and what's going on. I think we're going to see a lot of war propaganda. And I think you're going to see a lot of people that are going to get really enraged and really angry about some of the stuff that's kind of going on in the world, going like, I didn't vote for this, or I'm not enlisting, or I'm not sending my kids to war. I mean, as much as you guys don't want to hear that, you're going to hear major pushback. You know, we're in the year of the fire horse, very same as when we had the Vietnam War. And that was a period where we saw, I mean, massive, you know, people that were out protesting what was going on with the Vietnam War. I mean, people were burning their draft cards. You had a bunch of people that were in the streets. They were very much in opposition to what was kind of going on. And they were really pushing back against leadership. I'm seeing a lot of the same stuff. And so there can be a lot of disenfranchised voters and people who are like, I did not vote for this. You know, I did not vote to send my kids to war. I did not vote to send more tax dollars to, you know, kind of like international wars. I did not vote for these limitations. And now this is where the harsh realities of what's been going on with some of the conflict in the world and what leaders are deciding to do now have a direct impact on individuals. So when I say things like, oh, you know, we're going to have a hard time with, you know, confusion. We're not going to know what's right from wrong. We're going to be angry and confused and kind of in a daze. And then also there's going to be this sense of not getting that immediate gratification. And when we live in a world now where you can get on an app and you can swipe left or right and find a date, or you can immediately have food delivered to your office or to your home, the convenience of everything just being quick, being easy, being brought to you is no more. And this is the year where people are going to start to see that if you want something, you have to go out and get it, or you have to work harder for it, or you're going to be suffering the results of not being self-sufficient or independent, or being sick, being unhealthy. And now it's going to have a bigger kind of impact on your life. As much as I hate to say these things, that's what's going to happen. Out in the world, I think there's going to be a lot of discussion about what's going on with military and whether or not military is sufficient. If we have wounded veterans or people who have served, what's going on with their mental state. Also, I think we're going to see that this is going to be now the clawback after everything that's happened post-COVID, where they're trying to incentivize and bring people back and get them to come back into the service after they were potentially discharged or they left the service as a result of what happened with COVID. If people were reluctant to serve because they didn't believe in the agenda, or they were forced to make certain medical or health decisions that left them wounded. And now what they're going to do when they have military that are not able to defend, and now we're looking at potentially going, well, do we have to bring older individuals in? That happened. So recently they actually upped the enlistment age. I don't remember. I want to say it's to the mid 40s. And they're also willing to overlook, previous kind of criminal charges for possession and minor criminal charges for drug related incidents. Very much Mercury Neptune connected to the South Node. It's we'll overlook that. We don't care. They're gonna be willing to take people any which way they can get them. And in my opinion, okay, and I have to say this because morally I have to sleep at night. I think we're going to see some people who are going to be in military that are basically going to be we are not going to go and fight on the front lines. We're not going to do this. We morally do not agree because the narrative that's being put out there about what the war is and what it is realistically is wrong. That's what you will hear them say. And that's happening. We're seeing that, Marines are being told to get ready, that they're going to be shipping out soon. And we're also seeing all across, you're not going to see it on your mainstream news, but there's whole movements that are going on within certain organized military groups, particularly the Marines, that are pushing back, being why are we doing this? Why are we potentially putting boots on the ground in Iran? Why is this necessary? And it's all about foreign wars. Mars, in Aries is going to be about war. Neptune is going to be about foreign war and how things are being presented versus what's actually happening. And whether it's individuals, veterans, people who are potentially enlisted, getting angry and potentially defying, what superiors are saying. Saturn. Mars, Neptune is very much connected to anything that's going to deal with the Navy, right? So anything that deals with ships. And so I could see that there also is going to probably be a lot more action revolving around what's going on with the Strait of Hormuz, whether or not, we can get ships through there, if they're going to be opening that up again, which is a lot easier said than done, and whether or not there's going to be force that's going to be used, and if it materializes as major, casualty events, which would enrage a lot of Americans. So when we think about what's happened in previous world wars, it's always kicked off with a ship getting blown up, or there has been a massive attack that's been on a military hub or port, and I worry about that when I look at this, and I don't just worry about how that's going to impact the people who are serving, because that is important, but I also worry about how it's going to really shatter the illusions of what a lot of people think is really going on, and thinking yes, everything's good, we're winning this war, when in reality it's not about winning war. People are dying. On top of that, we're going to see a lot of enraged people who are going to probably act a little crazed. And we're also going to be seeing that individuals are going to be angry because they're going to be going, wait, what's going on? Wait, so because of this war that we've been cheering on, thinking that we're winning, now it's having a direct impact on our ability to get food, our ability to get medication, our ability to get oil, and also gas. So it can signify that things get very inflamed in mid-April. And then over the next 6 months, individuals are going to feel the effects when it comes to buying groceries, when it comes to getting supplies, medication, getting to work, staying employed. And it's basically saying it's going to make it harder for individuals to be able to push forward. Now, be careful with the Mercury Neptune aspect. I think that it can create that fog around communication. Even though we want to be more artistic and more compassionate, we have to double check the facts and don't just sign contracts without reading carefully. Be weary of believing everything you hear. But positively, it can be that your intuition is loud and creative ideas can flow, and we can articulate some of our truths a little bit better. So we want to remind ourselves that under this new moon, we're communicating with compassion and clarity. We're trusting our intuitive mind, but we're also trusting that we have to do what's kind of best for us. The Mars will in conjunct or quincunx the South Node, and Saturn's doing the same thing, and it's at a 7, so it can be talking about things feeling a little disjointed with like relationships, but having the in conjunct or the quincunx is like a 150-degree aspect. And what this does is it creates tension, and it's tension that's needed for adjustment. I always say it's like sandpaper. So it's awkward, and it's kind of taking the two energies that don't naturally understand each other and trying to force them to reconcile. What's interesting is that, you know, Mars is in its home sign, Aries, and Mercury is in Aries, and Mercury is tied to the South Node. And so for me, I've looked at this from the lens of my life and also from other people's. I'm like, so many of us have been so hard on ourselves. We have been so self-critical. So many of us have this internal dialogue that's like, you know, that voice that's in the back of your head that's like, it's not going to work. You know, you're never going to be able to do it, or you're never going to amount to anything, or you're not good enough, or you're not capable. And that's been kind of it's been in the air. We've been feeling that, especially during the Mercury retrograde in Pisces. So really it's like a mind over matter thing. I think with like Mercury separating from Neptune, where we're like now aware of our blind spots and like where we're getting in our own way, or like where we've been confused or lost. And then when you take Mercury, the mind, and you start applying it to Mars, which is I think I can, I think I can, I think I can, to Saturn is I know I can, I'm getting there, I'm doing it, I know I'm capable, I just know that I need to have strategy. We can kind of confront the South Node in conjunct or quincunx. Now, when Mars and Saturn are in conjunct to the South Node in Virgo, what you'll find is that old patterns of like perfectionism is now like blocking action. So you may hesitate because something isn't ready. Maybe the need to adjust past habits comes up for you because the Virgo South Node is asking us to release old, outdated ways of working, eating, lifestyle, and overanalysis. Maybe it's a lot about like just trust your gut. You know, I think about like the last time Saturn was in Aries, and it was like in the mid 90s, and that's when I believe the just do it for Nike came out, right? It was just do it. Don't think about it, just do it. Just go there, put the shoes on, run the marathon, you know, all that stuff. But that was such a timely slogan to be coming out at the time. And I've been seeing myself doing this when planets have been going through Aries. I'm like, nope, I just have to do it. You know, I have to stop overthinking it. I'm just going to do it. And to some extent, that's positive, but I'm also kind of keeping in mind that Mars is getting very close to Saturn. And that means that I think to save our relationship to ourselves, to be in alignment with our authenticity, to get to where we need to go, we need to do the things now, not just say or think the things. We need to do the things now that we know that we need to do, even if it's going to disappoint and it's going to adjust and change our relationship, 7, to other people. We'll find that the theme of, you know, service versus self is going to come up. And it's going to be about balancing what you want, Aries, with what you feel like you should do, Virgo. Take into consideration health stuff. I think just a new moon conjunct Chiron would be enough for that. A Mars-Saturn conjunction would be enough for that. But the body needing adjustment to support our ambitions, right? And so a lot of this is like people who are like, yeah, I want to feel like I can get out there and I can, you know, travel and do this and do that and live an active lifestyle. But what are you actually doing to get there, right? What are your everyday morning rituals and routines? I love a new moon in the first house personally, because this is a time where it's embodying that energy of an Aries new moon. It's saying we have to really think about where we're going, and we have to get up early in order to do that. And so you might find yourself adjusting your schedule a little bit. Saturn is time being like, I am spending a little bit more time, you know, getting up in the morning and having a morning routine, or I'm working out in the morning, or I have a to-do list and I'm kind of working through it, or I'm doing little things every day to accomplish my goals. Aries is about starting them. It is not about finishing them. So we don't have to worry about finishing it right now. We have to worry about starting it. So I would be saying to myself, I release, you know, perfectionism, and I trust that my actions are enough. Maybe you don't need to be ready. You just need to start something. Sorry, I'm losing my voice. Give me a second. Man. Okay. So then we look at Uranus and Taurus. Obviously, there's no real aspects going on with Uranus, but it's worthy of mentioning that we've got a couple planets here that are kind of like hitting these anaretic degrees. It is in the final degrees of Taurus at 29 degrees. So this basically means that it's getting ready to leave Taurus. This is a degree that deals with Saturn. It's also a degree that deals with fate. It's considered critical. And it's the last gasp of Uranus and Taurus before it moves into Gemini. So there's this urgency on a personal level with the intentions that we're setting, the actions that we're taking within Uranus and Taurus themes. Urgency around financial shifts. So a lot of people are going to be like, oh my God, I got to get to the bank. I got to pull some money out, and we will probably see some weird bank run things happening. You will see some people who are going to be panic buying or trying to purchase, food or resources or supplies. And there could be some conflict or chaos over what people can get. So like, cue like the fights in the Walmart kind of aisles type of thing, and that shenanigans. Arguments and conflicts over sudden rising prices of goods, sudden rising prices of gas, the physical implications and what's going to be kind of happening for us economically as a result of potential like war tensions and how it impacts the market. We can also see that there's last minute disruptions to money, values, resources, and food. Earth changes can happen. So possible kind of like seismic or environmental events. I'm thinking with Aries, it's going to be more relating to fire or earthquakes. And obviously kind of completing the revolution, and whatever Uranus and Taurus is shaking up for us, it's really reaching this climax. So there can be a lot of instability demanding resolution. And I think it's like things that we have been building now are getting ready to release. So this adds more kind of like unpredictable electric kind of quality to this new moon. And I would expect the unexpected, even though it's not making any direct aspects to Uranus, it is there. And I would be saying the intention behind that is like embracing change as a part of your ally, releasing what no longer serves your values. And we may see that individuals are kind of rushing into, new financial systems, new solutions for, avoiding currency debasement, new kind of investments that can be connected to hard assets, right? So things that are like metals, land, property, things that are going to retain their value that can be almost like sheltered if there was going to be some really intense kind of changes going on around the world. But you're going to see that anyway with Uranus, kind of leaving Taurus and going into Gemini. I think we're going to hear a lot more about instant transactions, new processing systems, potentially even talking about like stable coins and things of that nature that people are going to be like, wait, what? Like, do we have to get into this now? And I would be saying just play it easy, play it by ear. Don't make any snap decisions or judgments there. Now, obviously, with a new moon, we want to set intentions, right? So it can be as simple as literally writing your intentions out. It doesn't have to be anything like magical, but this is a fire sign. So I like the idea of working with fire. So I would be either lighting like a red candle, or you can even do a white candle is like neutral, but a red candle would be good for really channeling the energy of Mars and setting that intention for what actions you're taking. So maybe you decide that, you want to have some kind of fire ritual. And because Aries rules the physical body, you could sit down and write your intentions for, what physical changes you're hoping to achieve, or, what you're going to be doing when it comes to your new physical routine, or with your new job or your new career. Look at the house that Aries is in. That's where you're going to have that new beginning. Or you can do something that's going to kind of get your blood pumping. A workout, dancing, physical fitness, and then sitting quietly and setting your activations from kind of like that, your intentions from that activated state. You can also write a bold letter of intention, like for the universe. So you can sit down and you can like write a letter to yourself, maybe in 6 months' time, and where you see yourself in the future, and describe who you've become, what you have started, how brave you were, and then seal it. Put it in an envelope somewhere, maybe put like a piece of carnelian or like a quartz crystal on top of it. Come back to it in 6 months in September in Libra season, and you can open it and you can see just how much of that list you've accomplished. And I would say anything that deals with first steps. So like a ritual revolving around, instead of just writing intentions, you take one concrete first step towards that new moon kind of like intention. Because Aries wants action, not necessarily planning. And I think that if we get too kind of wrapped up in the, how is it all going to work out? What is it going to look like vibe? We miss the true opportunity to really be in the moment and kind of get things going. And obviously, cord cutting rituals and ceremonies can be really powerful because Saturn is karma. And so like some of you guys might sit down and be like, okay, I'm going to write out all of the bad habits, the blockages, the karmic relationship stuff, the limitations that I've been feeling. I'm writing it down in like red pen or red marker. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to, you know, cut those pieces of paper up and I'm going to release them all because I'm starting fresh and I'm healing. I'm coming at it from a healing state. And then maybe you decide that you want to, like, you know, burn that somewhere. You know, you throw it into a fireplace, you kind of toss it into an open flame, and then you let it kind of release. And we want to be approaching our intentions from the I am, because that's what Aries is. So it's not like, you know, I'm wanting more money, or I am wanting, no, it's I am receiving abundance. I am healthy. I am strong. I am capable. I am successful. Because we're not asking for permission. We are taking the necessary steps to make this stuff happen. With Aries energy, I love working with herbs ritually that are going to be spicy, or things that are going to have a little bit more of like a blood pumping type of like energy. So if you want to put some of these herbs in your food, if you want to be planting some of these herbs, if you want to be throwing some in a bath or in a candle, one that's really easy is ginger. Ginger is very strongly associated with Aries or like Mars energy because it ignites motivation and courage. Ginger, cayenne, red pepper, you know, this is all fire energy that gets things moving. Nettles is also really great because it's Mars ruled and it supports vitality and it's good for the blood. Basil also is really good because it has that connection to Mars through courage and also passion. And if you guys want to work with like certain resins or certain scents, dragon's blood's really great for Aries. Cinnamon is really great for Aries as well. So like I would take like, you know, ginger, cinnamon, maybe a pinch of cayenne, and I would throw that into, you know, some nettles tea, and I would drink that in the morning, you know, really, really easy. Cinnamon's good for success too. And then for those of you guys who are like, no, I don't want to do like the herbal thing. Garlic is also really great. So I like taking like garlic and ginger, and you can put that into like bone broth, which is really good for like boosting the immunity and anything that's going to be connected to healing. Now for crystals, my go-to is I love to work with carnelian for Aries energy because it promotes more courage. It helps us become more focused on vitality and action, and it's very much connected to the kind of sacral fire area. Red jasper is good and it's grounding, but it also gives us a lot of physical energy and stamina, as well as bloodstone. This is the stone that deals with courage, passion, and our inner flame. Ruby, garnet, these are fine too. It's good for energizing and manifesting and being more of like a leader. And I like using clear quartz. I have some clear quartz like clusters that has like the iron ore on it. So that's also really good for manifesting because iron is kind of connected to Aries, more energy and vitality. You can use pyrite for confidence and manifestation. Citrine is also really great for confidence and personal power, and that has a lot of solar energy. But yeah, I would say if you don't have some carnelian, pick some up. It's pretty easy to find. You could throw it on a bracelet. You can wear it around your neck. You can keep it in your pocket or in your purse. And same thing with the essential kind of blends. You know, if you want to work with essential oils, or if you want to work with diffusers, keep it to stuff that's going to be a little bit more spicy. So ginger, cinnamon, black pepper, rosemary, also juniper can be really good, and you can blend some of these and you can throw them in a diffuser. If you have incense sticks with these scents, it's really good for rituals as well. So my thought on this is that this is going to be really powerful on a personal level. It's going to feel like we are moving mountains literally over the next 6 months. But on a collective level, it's where things really start to heat up. And now this is where I think individuals are feeling the effects personally and financially of just some of the conflict and some of the drama that's kind of happening in the world. And we want to shift that mentality from I'm just one person, you know, what can I do, to I'm just one person, how many other people can I inspire? Can I wake up? Where can I lead by example? Where am I also embracing this fresh start, even if it's going to be hard, or if it's going to require me to face some of my problems head on, or to get more physically active or healthy, because this is what I need to do. Now, if you guys look at this, it's going to become a full moon in 6 months' time. So we should see some other hard Saturn, maybe even Mars aspects. Look at this. So you'll see in the fall, around September 26th, this becomes a full moon in Aries. Sorry, guys, I know it's, here, let me change this a little bit so you can see it from the perspective of Aries rising. There we go. You're going to see a full moon in Aries. It looks like it's going to be around 3 degrees. And it's going to be smack dab between Neptune retrograde in Aries and Saturn retrograde in Aries. And what's happening when we have this full moon? It's ruled by Mars. Mars is at 29 degrees of Cancer, and it's beginning to oppose Pluto in Aquarius. So the pressure's on. We're going to see it. It's 100% going to be on. I think this is really going to start to show us where individuals are now suddenly moving. They're relocating. They're moving to different parts of the country, different parts of the world. Can also be showing us where, you know, individuals, if they have not taken accountability for their health or their self-awareness, it's then going to start creating a lot of like relational issues, right? Because Venus is actually getting ready to go retrograde too. So it's showing us that, you know, we have to, I think, take personal accountability right now. I've said to you guys, that's like the theme in 2026, and that we have to be aware of our actions, of what we bring to the table, you know, what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong, and really kind of up the standard when it comes to how we are just kind of navigating out in the world. And even in spite of other people who aren't necessarily playing by the rules, trying to do that. And I think a lot of people are going to find that over the fall, because you'll see, you know, with this full moon in Aries, which is going to show the polarity between individuals and also like relationships, it's going to be a very significant relationship turning point. You know, Venus is getting ready to go retrograde. Mercury and Venus will retrograde in October, you know, from Scorpio back into Libra. So we're going to see a lot of, I think, people kind of breaking away from their alliances. And that could be seen in like a marriage sense, in a business partner sense, in a friendship sense. I think a lot of people are going to be breaking away from like political affiliations and political parties. We're also going to see a lot of people who are probably going to want to be changing, like I said, where they're living. And just Mars being in Cancer at 29 degrees means that there is some kind of critical crisis that's kind of happening on the home front. And it's coming from some changes that are going on out in the world and like world powers or power issues. It could be also, you know, kind of like effects that are now fully seen as a result of maybe issues with war and where some areas have been impacted like around the world. So I know this sounds like doom and gloom. I'm of the frame of mind that, you know, with hard aspects to Saturn, if we listen to what Saturn is trying to tell us, and if we pay attention and we're willing to, you know, do the heavy lifting, or if we're willing to really take our time, you know, to do things right, to do things according to standard, to do things according to code, then we will definitely be rewarded. And I think that I would be more concerned about the personal karma of my actions, honestly, under this new moon, because it's going to show us within 6 months' time that we may not have the support of others, or we may not have healthy relationships, or we may be losing friendships or out of jobs if we're not able to stand up, not just for what's right, but also for ourselves. So it's going to feel like a lot, I know, but I'm trying to look at this from a positive standpoint. I want to use these videos to really, you know, tell you guys when the hard stuff is coming and teach you how to kind of navigate it. Your best bet is leaning into the sextile with Pluto, because that's going to show you where there is a definitive transformation in one area, which is going to put pressure through the sextile to Aries, and it's going to be about how you are personally showing up in that area of your life to navigate the change. And like I said, watch it for about, you know, 2 to 4 weeks. You'll start to see some changes, but most of the changes are going to be felt closer to the end of September. Now, I'm a Western astrologer. That's the kind of astrology that I like to practice. So I'm going to be showing you guys this from the perspective of the Western whole sign system. Obviously, it's at a later degree. So a lot of people are going to be like, actually, 27 degrees of Aries is not in this house. So you may have to listen to more than one. And I think that's a good idea. I do recommend listening to your rising sign to see where in your life this is going to be happening, and listening to your moon sign, especially because this is a lunation, to see how you're going to be feeling. And then the sun sign is going to talk a little bit about how this is impacting you on like a personal level, whether it's your career, your joy, you know, your vitality, all of that stuff. You have to listen to all three to get a better understanding. And if you happen to have anything at 26, 27, or 28 degrees of Aries, sun, moon, rising, personal planet, or a node, this is going to be really important for you guys. If it's your birthday and it's a new moon birthday, there's definitely a lot of new beginnings for you this year. And if you happen to have anything around 26 to 28 degrees of the cardinal sign, so Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, you're definitely feeling the effects of the new moon squaring you, as well as Chiron. And those of you guys who have anything around 1 to 8 degrees of the cardinal signs, Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn, you guys are going to be feeling it too. It's hitting the first decan and the last decan. So let's see what predictions I have for you guys. We're going to start first with my Aries and my Aries risings. All right, Aries. So you know the drill, right? You get one new moon once a year. And to be honest with you, this is a new moon that's like a once every so many decades, in my opinion. because we only see Saturn going through your sign like every 28 to 29 years. You know, Mars goes through there every 2 years. Neptune goes there. I mean, like, never, you haven't seen it in your lifetime, and you're not going to see it again. I'll leave it at that. It's so rare to see these cycles, and then to see them all together is really saying you're bringing main character energy. I think that with Mars ruling your first house and it being your new moon, it means that it's in your house of self. Mars is also in that house as well. And so I think about how Mars conjunct Mercury is like, you know, you're thinking about your job, you're thinking about your purpose, you're thinking about your health. And Mars is also conjunct Saturn. So you may feel like I have to make some tough decisions personally about my career, my health, or just my daily routines. And this might be a time where you're setting intentions to really focus on complete personal reinvention. And whether that's how you look, what your body looks like, how you're dressing, how you're carrying yourself, everything over the next 6 months is going to change dramatically. Likely it's brought on by either needing to kind of deal with some health stuff, or really finally getting to the core of where you feel different, where you feel misrepresented or misunderstood, where now you're using that to your advantage. And now you're like, you know what, I felt different, but I listened to, you know, my heart. My heart told me to keep going my way, to kind of do it my way and do my own thing. And now you're going to be inspiring other people, I think, to do the same thing, or you're going to be finding people who are like-minded, who are going to support who you're becoming. This is also, I think, wonderful for, you know, courage to be unapologetically you, leadership opportunities that might start emerging, and really starting something new that defines you. Now, the sun's about creativity, self-employment, children, and romance. Moon's connected to your home and your emotions. So a lot of you guys are finally feeling like, I can move, you know, I can launch a business, I can potentially, you know, expand something about my home or my family, my emotions. And so you're on fire, like quite literally, with all these planets. And you're playing with a home field advantage if you have both the sun and also the moon and Mars in your sign. So your drive can be unstoppable. Just watch for impatience and also aggression. You want to channel this into creation. And I think that the tip that I would give you guys is just, you know, this is such a powerful new moon for you. And this is about setting big intentions about who you're becoming, where you see yourself in 6 months, where you see yourself in a year, because Saturn will come up on these degrees next year as well. This is just your personal year that's beginning now. So you're not going to see the true effects of it for about 6 to 12 months time. All right, well, let's take a look. What can we tell our Aries and Aries risings about this transit of this new moon in Aries? The card that I get is Judgment. I'm not surprised by that, because to me, it's like this feeling that's like, okay, this keeps coming up for me. It keeps coming up for me. It keeps coming up for me. What am I going to do about it? And so Judgment is basically saying like it's now or never. It could also be like literally like karmic reckoning for you, where yes, I know a lot of Aries and Aries risings are going to be like, oh my gosh, April was terrible. You know, it was really difficult. But once you get through some of these like Mars transits, as we're getting into May, things are going to ease up. But it's also showing you that there have been some things that you've been kind of backburnering for a while. And I don't know if it's just things that you're doing for yourself. And maybe that's part of the Saturn transit is like, you know what, this job isn't good for me. I got to make changes, or I got to have better boundaries, or, you know, I've always wanted to do this thing for myself and now I'm going to do it. The time has come. And the universe is really encouraging you, not just through this new moon, but also through the Saturn and the Mars transits, to like get the show on the road. Go after your dreams, even if it means you have to be a little bit more selfish, even if that means that you have to go your own way. It's going to be a very big energy for you guys. So pay attention to what keeps coming up and where you're finally kind of executing and taking control. Good luck, Aries. All right, Taurus and Taurus rising, you guys are doing this new moon in the sign of Aries in your natal 12th house, which is quiet for the most part because it is, you know, behind your ascendant or your sun. So it's something that's kind of like kind of subconscious things that are coming in. For you guys, the 12th house deals very much with your subconscious, spirituality, hidden realms, what you do in private, foreign lands, healing centers, things that are connected to alone time and like retreat and reflection. Now, when the new moon comes in, it's really highlighting Mars being here. And Mars doesn't just rule your 12th house, it's directly connected also to your 7th house of relationships and partnerships. So it can be that you're reassessing your relationships, you know, privately. You're taking time away from partnerships, you're reflecting, you're contemplating, you know, what new things you're wanting to tap into. And I think for many of you guys, it's just spiritual new beginnings. So taking some time to kind of pause and reflect and reassess things and like get some extra sleep or focus on your health and your healing is important. Releasing old identities and also patterns, I think, is also a big one. And dreams and intuition are likely to be very amplified. And this is about healing in solitude. And if you're not doing that, then you're making an effort to do that. Otherwise, you can sometimes, obviously, touch wood, have some like health issues. You know, like a new moon like this can put you down with a fever, or can put you in bed, or there can be something that's kind of holding you back because it's trying to get you to work through something emotionally rather than just being like, go, go, go. And I also think that endings are going to happen, but it's preparing for new beginnings. So it's pretty common when planets are going through Aries, you know, especially if you're Taurus rising, Taurus sun, you know, Aries season is about like things kind of wrapping up. And for you, because Aries is still you, it can be the sense of you going, I'm done with this. You know, I don't want to carry this with me into the next year. I don't want to be doing this anymore. And, you know, what am I doing to actively release and like let some of these things go? And so, yeah, you know, rest before the surge that's coming. Embrace some of the endings and know that they're going to be new beginnings. I think your drive is much more internalized with Mars in your 12th house. It is sextiling Pluto in your career house, so it's a lot about the work you can get done behind the scenes or what you're kind of like now finishing up, and that you're processing, preparing, and you're purging. So don't force external action right now. Wait until Mars gets into your sign. Honor that inner work. Meditate, journal, rest, you know, clear all the psychic clutter. And I think in a month's time, you're going to see the energy is definitely shifting in a big way when more so planets are kind of moving into Taurus. All right, well, let's take a look. What can we tell the Taurus and the Taurus risings about this new moon in Aries? Oh, beautiful. The card you get is the Ace of Wands, which is, this is a card you want to see with a new moon, particularly in Aries, but also with Mars in Aries. For me, because I've been working with like the 12th house stuff a lot lately, it's made me realize that it's kind of like a double-edged sword. The 12th house can be on one hand conclusions and completions, but it can also mean that this is where the spirit is kind of preparing for what's going to drop in and become physical, or, you know, what is rising, right? So as you see planets going into Taurus, which will be over like the next month. This is telling me that you're lighting the spark, right? Desire is coming back, creativity is coming back. Feeling motivated is coming back, but it's like you're waiting to get those downloads. You're waiting for your soul to be like, okay, yes, it's coming, but we have to really focus on, you know, getting that idea or getting things in motion before it becomes actualized, before it becomes physically obvious. Aces are about new energy. So I think that maybe there's a new spiritual practice, there's new goals, there's a new way of looking at yourself. Maybe you have a new ritual or kind of like nighttime routine. 12th house would be great for like therapy, saunas, going to the spa, hot yoga, meditation, tai chi, working out in a fitness studio, you know, by yourself. That almost becomes like your church. That self-work that you're doing behind the scenes, I think, is what's going to be the most impressive and also the most fulfilling. Great read for you, Taurus. You guys have to let me know what happens. Gemini rising. You guys are going to experience a new moon that's going to be in the sign of Aries in your natal 11th house. Now, Gemini, if you're a late degree Gemini, this is friendly. Really just in general, there's even early degree stuff going through Aries. So this sextiles you by sign, and air and fire fuel each other. You're going to find with the new moon in your 11th house that it's really touching on the themes of your goals, right? What are your goals for the next 6 months? Are you planning social events? Are you joining groups? Are you trying to be a better friend? Are you trying to make new friends? And Mars is tied to this house, but it's also going to be tied to your 6th house of health, habits, and work. So this new moon is really igniting your social life, and it's helping you focus on friendships and also your future vision. But this might mean you're working with new groups, you're working out with new groups, you have new fitness goals, you're trying to meet active people, and new friendships and social circles are likely going to be the intentions that you're focusing on. Goals and dreams getting activated, community involvement that's going to begin, finding your tribe, maybe technology and social media, you know, kind of groups that you're connecting to, and hopes for the future becoming a little bit more so clarified. With that Mars energy, I think that your drive towards your dreams and your community is very strong, but being that it's conjunct Saturn might be highlighting that you have to travel to see friends, or that you're kind of getting involved in learning or education groups or self-help groups. That can be something that's going on. Your friends can be kind of going through it during this period, and like Mercury is pretty close to Mars, so you may feel like there is a feeling of needing to get over putting yourself out there, you know, being independent, being vulnerable. Maybe there's some stuff you need to kind of hash out with certain friends. And it can also be about taking leadership in a group or fighting for a cause that you believe in. if I were a Gemini, I would say, you know, under this transit, I would set intentions about the future that you are creating. Not that you want to create, the future that you are creating. And connecting with people who share your vision, starting a group project, creating a community of some kind. Maybe you're kind of rounding the troops together and you're like, hey, we need to, you know, do something about this cause. And you decide that you're going to be the one who's going to spearhead it. I would also really encourage you guys to write your wishes down, because this is kind of like the 11th house is like the birthday candle and the birthday cake. And even though it's not your birthday per se, you'll see that this is going to be 6 months of really focusing on your dreams and on your goals. And it looks like you're going to have to be the person who's kind of involved in initiating a lot of this. All right, so let's see what the cards say for my Gemini and Gemini rising. Ooh, the card that I get is the Nine of Swords. I mean, like, look, you know, Mercury conjunct Neptune can be Nine of Swords. It can be like, I'm like worried about all the things. Like, what are other people going to say? Like, what are they going to think? You know, like, what if they don't like me? What if it's not well received? Like, don't worry about things you cannot change. And this really, I think, correlates with this, with the Sabian, right? It's talking about somebody being on stage and not being well received by the audience. The 11th house is your audience, Gemini. So whether it's people you're presenting to at work, or friends that you're, you know, telling a story to, or you're maybe, you know, you have a podcast or a blog or a YouTube channel or social media, and you're trying to share with other people, and other people may not be so receptive of some of your ideas, don't fret about that. I think that for you, the Sabian symbol really applies. You can't appease your audience. And what you're going to find is that not all of the people are your people. Maybe it's creating space for more authentic people to be connecting with you, working with you, collaborating, and seeing what you have to say. Don't stress the small stuff, and it might mean there is a period of having like a brief amount of stress with a friend, but you will find that some of the friendships are getting flushed out right now because you have Saturn that's going through your 11th house, okay? Hang in there, let me know what happens, but overall I think this is great for your goals. All right, Cancer and Cancer rising, you guys are doing the new moon in the sign of Aries. In your 10th house, obviously lunar transits really impact you because you're ruled by the moon. And if you happen to have, I would say, Cancer placements between 1 and 8 degrees, or 26 and 20, I would say 28 degrees, you're going to be feeling the effects of this the most through the square. Now, Cancers, the new moon is in your 10th house, which is about your career, your status, your reputation. And Mars is there, so it is connected very much to just the directness that you have at work, the action that you're taking, the competitiveness that's coming in. But it's also connected to your 5th house of creativity, dating, self-expression. So this is your career new moon. I know that it's been heavy since Saturn has gotten into this house. I know that a lot of you guys are either starting fresh or going back to work. There's a new responsibility that's kind of showing up in your life. It could be dealing with parents or parenting. It could be trying to launch a business. It really depends, but this would be the new moon that really marks a new career chapter for you guys. And it's going to be about, you know, big things for your public life and also your ambitions. Public recognition and visibility is a key, although you may feel a little weird sticking your neck out there with the Chiron aspect, where you're like, ooh, like I don't feel comfortable being in the limelight or being seen, or I don't know how to be a manager or a leader or a business owner. And leadership roles will emerge. You will see this happen over the better part of the next several months. Ambition becomes very much activated. I feel like with Mars and Saturn, you don't really have a choice. It's about showing up and really kind of being more of like an authority at work, but also in your own life. So it could be in your relationships. It could be also just your identity in the world. And I've been telling my Cancer risings, I'm like, you have to be the captain of your own ship. Like you literally have to be telling people, this is what I'm doing. This is what I got going on. Like, this is my plan. And do you want to come with me? Okay. If not, I'm still doing this. You know, it's just about being a little bit more discerning about where you see your future going, both professionally, but also in your relationships. So, you know, your authority and your reputation matters. It might mean you're starting a business or a new personal project. And I feel like this, with Mars being there, you feel very driven to be seen, right? So you're very busy. And ambition is at an all-time high. Mars does really well in the 10th house, and you might feel like you're asserting yourself with authority figures, or not, maybe you're becoming one. I could see this also being a little tricky, like with kids. I could see some of you guys being more assertive with your children, or being more assertive about your business, or maybe with romantic partners. And I would just encourage you guys to set clear career intentions, to take bold personal and professional action out in the world, whether that's applying for a job, launching something, you know, stepping into a leadership role, A lot of you guys are going to have a lot of work on your plate, but I think that it's something that you can navigate. And I think that you'll look back in 6 months and you'll be like, oh my gosh, like look at how much I was able to kind of like achieve, and like look what's been happening work-wise. And it's going to be a pretty big turning point for you. That sextile to Pluto too is about like, you know, the opportunity for your career to change through psychological shifts, funding shifts, other people's money, investments, you know, even like loans, or like negotiating your pay. So that could be really big for you guys also. All right, so the card that I get for you is the Five of Cups. Which I feel like, I mean, when you look at Chiron and the moon coming together, it could mean that there are some disappointments. There are some disappointments in regards to, I didn't think it was going to be this hard, or I didn't think it was going to be this difficult, or, you know, I don't want to move on to another career, or I don't want to shift gears, or I don't want the responsibility. And the Five of Cups is reminding you, do not stay there for too long. I always say with this card, don't cry over spilled milk. A lot of you guys may want the, you know, success and the recognition, but you might not feel so great emotionally about taking on the load or about being seen. I also think that this can be a card that talks about disappointment over things not going according to plan. And I'll be the first one to tell you guys, with Mars and Saturn coming into conjunction with your 10th house, in your 10th house, you're going to feel very frustrated that things are not picking up as quickly as you want them to. But that doesn't mean you give up, right? So you may feel like giving up or throwing in the towel or like rage quitting your job, sure, but I would be like, no, use that motivation, use that disappointment as motivation to be like, I'm going to try it again, back to the drawing board, or I'm going to keep at it until I start to see some kind of success. And don't feel like you're hitting roadblocks. What you're hitting are speed bumps. There are things that are going on that are slowing you down, so that way you're not getting over your head, you know, taking on positions that you can't really handle, or things that aren't going to be fulfilling for you or long lasting for you in the long term. So I think you're having to make some difficult decisions now about where you're going with your career, but you're doing it because it's like self-preservation, and you want to make sure that you're going to have something that's long lasting. Good luck, Cancer. I hope it's a good one. I know you're going to feel a little flustered, but hang in there. All right, we've got Leo and Leo rising. You guys are going to be experiencing, let me take this back here for a second, guys. You guys are going to be experiencing a new moon in the sign of Aries, and this will be taking place in your natal 9th house. There we go. Sorry. And the new moon is going to be obviously in a fellow sister fire sign. So maybe a little bit easier in that sense for you guys to navigate, especially if you have like a later degree Leo or Leo rising. So like, you know, 26, 27, 28 degrees, you guys will be feeling the effects of the trine. Now, the sun is also your chart ruler if you're a Leo rising. So new moons impact you. The sun is meeting with Chiron and the moon. So it does talk about healing something that may involve education, mentors, travel, higher mind, you know, anything that deals with publishing. And I really feel like it's about you healing your beliefs, and it might be through, you know, 9th house topics. So for you, Leo, this is about, I think, you guys also tying in the themes of Mars, and Mars represents your 4th house of home. So you may be getting out of the home, you may be considering, you know, traveling or like a farther relocation, or maybe it can indicate that you're a bit flustered, or you're feeling kind of like trapped at home, so you want to get out, you want to go somewhere, or you want to learn something. So expect expansion, adventure, and your beliefs that are all getting activated. I think that this is when you can begin planning travel. I think some of you guys might be traveling for healing purposes, like if you're wanting to see specialists in other areas, if you're traveling to other countries for treatment, if you are just wanting to book a getaway so that way you can go and be alone on your own and heal and like let the past go. And higher education or teaching can start under these transits, publishing, sharing wisdom, and beliefs and philosophy, especially about yourself and the world around you, is evolving. And if you need to initiate legal matters, some of you guys may feel called to do that around the time of the new moon. But for the most part, it's about seeking adventure and also meaning. Now, what's interesting is that you are going to see that Mars is sextiling Pluto. So it can mean that if you are going through, let's say, a separation, you know, a divorce, something where there is some kind of like trouble with relationships, traveling will help, right? And some of you guys might be seeking teachers or gurus to help you through that process emotionally or spiritually, or new spiritual practices. Others will be kind of getting in contact, I think, with lawyers and like legal teams to kind of diffuse or kind of deal with some of these kind of intense situations with relationships that are playing out. But for the most part, it may say that you're really on this healing adventure for the better part of like the next 6 months. And I think that you're driven to explore, you're driven to learn, expand your horizons, and you may feel like you have to really fight for your beliefs or take bold action towards a big kind of vision idea. So my advice is book the trip, enroll in the class, start the book, expand your wisdom. You have to think big. All right, well, let's take a look. Let's see, what can we tell Leo and Leo rising for this new moon in Aries? I love that you got the Fool. It's so great. It's like it's a new moon. And I see this for Leo, so maybe I'm a little bit biased. But the Fool is like, taking a chance, taking a risk, going out on your own, doing something you've never done before, going somewhere you've never gone before, exploring, finding yourself. And yes, is there risk in that? For sure. But there's also a sense of like innocence and renewal and finding yourself throughout that process. And I've seen a lot of Leos that have been traveling to places they've never been to before, in Leo risings especially. And those of you guys who have never gone on a plane on your own, or you haven't gone to certain countries, or maybe you have never anticipated enrolling in a college course or writing a book, now you're willing to go on that adventure. And so I think it's really wonderful, especially if you have to tell a story about your healing, or maybe you want to start journaling so that way you can reflect on your healing process and what you've learned and where you've gone, what practices or what teachers or mentors you've connected with to help you along your way. Good luck, Leo. I hope it's a good one for you guys. All right, to my Virgos and Virgo risings, you guys are going to do a new moon in the sign of Aries in your natal 8th house. Quite important because Mercury is in this same sign and it's meeting with Neptune. So there's definitely a lot of like getting down to the details with this new moon. Now, it's in the 8th house. Obviously, the 8th house is going to be talking about deep transformation, psychology, research, shared resources, intimacy, and other people's money. So really, it's interesting because, Aries is still the self. So it's where you are transforming in some way. Through what? Endings and beginnings, financial dealings, research, all that stuff. Now, Mars is the ruler in the same sign as Mercury. And so you'll actually see Mercury snuggling up next to Mars right after this new moon, which is going to push you to kind of have important conversations and get down to details with people about what must change in one way or another. It can also kind of symbolize for you that you're more willing to have the hard conversations. You're more willing to do the research. You're more willing to address issues with joint finances, insurance, inheritance, partners' money, that kind of stuff. And really, it's indicating that there's going to be some pretty significant transformations that are going to be happening for you. And it can be financial transformations, so like investments, debt, shared money, intimacy, really deepening with you and another person, psychological breakthroughs like therapy, and releasing what's dead so something new can come alive. And so what you'll see is that power dynamics are shifting. And like I said, insurance or inheritance matters can come up. Both Mercury and Mars are sextile to Pluto. So it's a lot of getting your finances in order, maybe taxes in order, savings, expenses, loans, having conversations with partners that have been a little touchy about financial stuff as well. And I think that you're just going to find that, your drive is very intense during this new moon. You're very focused on transformation. And you may pursue some kind of like deep healing or confront shadows and maybe kind of take some kind of financial action. So you're setting intentions around deep change. And so if you're somebody who's like, hey, I've been thinking about beginning therapy, or finally, getting to the bottom of some financial issues, or just diving into intimate relationships with more courage, likely that's going to be rewarded. But it's also going to be interesting to see this many planets go through the 8th house. All of my Virgo and Virgo risings are going to go through some significant change. And I would say embrace the endings because it's making way for a new beginning and something really positive that can be very fortuitous for you and potentially a partner down the road. Very interesting to see how Mercury is going to start conjuncting Neptune. So you have to be careful with financial documents and like agreements and transactions here. And then Mercury coming into conjunction with Saturn can be the same. I've seen a lot of Virgo and Virgo risings that are like going back and forth about like spousal support, child support, waiting for an inheritance, dealing with a tax matter. And like, I think for a lot of you guys, it's going to result in money that's owed to you. You're going to be like, I need my money and I need it now, So whether it's invoices or money that's coming from legal matters or some kind of investment. The card that you get is the 6 of Cups. which is actually quite of a positive card. To me, this is getting back to sweeter times. It's about reflecting on the good times and who you had and what you had and when times were good. It can also mean that this is about dealing with childhood-related issues, things that involve children, child-related fees, expenses, joint finances that involve children, insurance things. But it could also be talking about like healing some kind of childhood wound or childhood trauma, and that might be coming up for you, and like recognizing and realizing that it's coming back up, but you can heal it, you can kind of like pay attention to it, and then you can address the situation and like let it go with grace, because the Six of Cups is supposed to be something that is about an emotional shift and an emotional release. I wonder for some of you guys if it's about like uniting with somebody, like uniting forces financially, or uniting with your partner to tackle like a really heavy situation in your life. Or if there is like a reunion that's potentially kind of coming up between you and another person. Although Jupiter is more relationships, you might be reconnecting with people in a different way after you've been going through a period of feeling like a little bit of being in hermit mode, right? So I hope that that's helpful for you guys. Definitely takes a lot of bravery and guts to deal with those planets going through the 8th house. So let me know how you're doing. All right, Libra and Libra rising, you guys are doing a new moon in your opposite sign, Aries, in your natal 7th house. Obviously, if you have anything, I would say 25, 26, 27, 28 degrees of Libra, sun, moon, or rising, this is opposing you. Yes, there is like a god-awful amount of planets going through the 7th house, and so there can be this feeling of, why is it about other people, right? So whether it's your clients, your relationships, your spouses, your business partners, whatever, there's a lot of other people going through things, Libra. So I just want to really reiterate this. It's not necessarily about you, and that's not a bad thing. What it's about is these new cycles that are starting through the new moon that's coming through your 7th house. Now, the 7th house is obviously ruled by Mars. Mars is there. Mars is also connected to the 2nd house of money, resources, and values, and it's going to be very much highlighted in your 7th. So some of the things you'll deal with Mars and Saturn going through your 7th house is confronting issues in relationships. And it doesn't mean that it has to be combative, but confronting things. What are we spending? What are we buying? What do we need? You know, what's changing? And you're going to find that it's about relationships that are the focus. So partners, contracts, one-on-one connections are all going to get highlighted. This is the one time a year that you can set a fresh kind of start when it comes to relationships. So if you're single, you're looking to meet somebody, this is when you set intentions. If you are in a relationship, you might find that you're just really focused on how you can kind of renew the relationships in some way. And Mars being there is saying that you're being more driven towards partnerships, but also you're going to see where there can be some issues and confusions with communication. Mars is going to meet Neptune, so it's going to be scheduling issues or misunderstandings. Mercury is there, so it's like your blind spots. And all of that meeting with Saturn is a lot of Libra and Libra risings having to confront family drama in legal situations, having to tackle moves or changes with living situations within relationships or partnerships, or where you're being pushed out of the house to go and kind of connect with people now. So it's sweet and it's salty. I think that really this is going to be for a lot of you guys learning that you're driven towards partnerships, but also you have to assert your needs within the partnership. And so partnerships can be very high, like there can be a lot of passion that's running hot, but also a lot of potential room for conflict if your needs are not expressed in the relationship. So what you want to focus on is setting intentions about the partnership you do want, and like being bold about your needs, and like maybe starting a new collaboration or offering a new service. This will be sextiling Pluto in the 5th house. So this gets interesting, where it's like some of the creative things you're doing, or some of the new romantic connections, or maybe even things that deal with or involve children, are now really putting the pressure on relationships. And like, yes, some Libra and Libra risings will have conflicts basically about kids or with kids, or, you know, debate, you know, family related things with their spouses. Others will find that this is really pushing them because they really passionately want love and connection to either go after what they want, seek somebody who's ready and more driven and assertive, or be inspiring their partners to kind of be that person for them. And that means that you're going to see them going through some stuff. So whether it's your business partners, your clients, you know, even your spouses, you're going to see them go through some stuff. And it talks about healing issues. So having to heal anger, frustration, problems with inflammation, issues with sinuses, you know, allergies, migraines, that kind of stuff is going to be kind of kicking up. And I think it's just about healing some of the wounding that you have revolving around like relationships. as a Libra rising, just give you guys feedback, you know, I have my moon in the 7th house, and I've had Chiron going through there, and it's been about me being like, have to be more assertive about what does not work for me with other people. And I noticed that there was like a reoccurring pattern where there was like migraines that were happening when I was not doing that. At first I thought it was my diet and it helped, and then I was like, oh, it's repressed emotions. And then I would see that not saying anything and people pleasing would materialize as these migraines. And then when I would finally say something and like lash out, it was like a hot mess. So trying to find that balance and seeing where also a lot of it was like actually being triggered by like relationships. So I would really encourage you guys to set intentions about partnerships, the partnerships that you do want, and, you know, being bold about your needs. And it can be a great time to connect and collaborate and meet people, but it's also a time where your partners are going to face karmic reckoning very quickly. And if they are not being good partners, or if they are not being kind, or if they are being hostile, or they are being mean, you are more inclined to be like, I'm not sticking around to see what's going to happen, or you have to go and heal yourself. It can be positive to work with an astrologer under this, you know, like lunation over that month, or even be working with a therapist. That can be really helpful as you're kind of going through some of the changes relationally. Sometimes the 7th house is about bringing in a third party. All right, so let's take a look. Let's see what we can tell our Libras and Libra risings that jumped out about this new moon in the sign of Aries. You got the Hermit card, which it's so obvious to me, because these planets, especially Saturn's in the 7th house, which it does well with commitment, but it's in conjunct and quincunx the South Node. And then Mars is going to do that, and Virgo is very much associated with the Hermit card, okay? And Mercury will do that. It's almost like if you've been in a relationship and if there have been problems for some time, you are going to see around mid to the end of April where these problems are now getting to a point where you no longer can tolerate some of the things that are happening. And so only you will understand that. Is it clients missing appointments, or business partners not supporting you? Is it, you know, partners that have mental health issues, addiction issues, habits, you know, are they being aggressive, whatever? And really the Hermit card is about retreating. Right? And so unfortunately, you know, Mars doesn't want to retreat, and neither does Saturn. And Mercury represents things that you've been thinking about, or things that have been kind of hindering you. And now you're finally like, here it is. And it can come all out at one time. And it can definitely create some issues. But it can also be a time where you're turning within and you're really reevaluating what needs to change in relationships. And you've come to terms with what you need on a personal level. Now you're ready to do the heavy lifting. Sometimes for some Libra risings, it does make sense that you guys are having to work harder also at partnerships, but you need other people who are going to be doing the same and pulling their weight. Okay, so think about that. Hopefully that's helpful for you, Libras. Definitely let me know what happens. Scorpio and Scorpio rising, you guys are doing the new moon in Aries in your natal 6th house of health, habits, and routines, work, pets, and, well, I think anything that's kind of connected to service, right? So when you have a new moon here, basically the intentions are going to revolve around all of those things. And Mars is in its home sign, Aries, so there's a lot of action, drive, and motivation to get stuff done. But Mars is also your chart ruler as well, Scorpio. And one silver lining, I would say, to all these planets in your 6th house, where you're going to probably feel like you're just working your butt off, is Mars is sextiling Pluto. So you have both of your chart rulers that are in harmony with each other. Now, it's going to look different for every Scorpio and Scorpio rising. Obviously, like a new moon in the 6th house is where your daily life, your work, and your health are all activated. And so what you're going to see is this is a very powerful time because Mars is approaching a conjunction to Saturn. So you're feeling like you need to get your home in order, or you're feeling like you need to have a kind of strict or strong or regulated schedule. Maybe it's about taking care of animals or pets. Maybe it's about taking care of relatives. Maybe you're just trying to feel like your home is more functional, or that you have like a routine that's kind of working if you're working from home. A new moon in the 6th house is great for a new health routine. And I would really, really encourage my Scorpio and Scorpio risings to do this. If you're somebody who's already been good about fitness, I would be like, take it up a notch. Neptune is there, so it can mean that it's also about making time for creativity and feeling inspired. Obviously, Mars is going to meet Saturn, so it can mean that you have to declutter your house, or you're getting rid of things. It can also mean that you have to be more diligent with your schedule so you can get everything done. And then you're also going to be seeing that that sextile to Pluto is helping you feel empowered. But coming out of myself, having had Saturn and Neptune in my 8th house, in my 6th house, like you're going through now the last couple of years, every time Mars has gone through there, I really fine-tune things. I'm like, okay, I have more to-do lists. I'm working out more. I'm more diligent with my work. I'm making sure that I'm being of service. And I would encourage you guys to do the same thing. If you want to start a new health routine, check in with the doctor. If you're wanting to get a trainer, if you're wanting to go to a new gym, if you just want to be healthier in your habits, now is the time to do it. And I think that this could be where work projects are starting. Some of you guys could be going into a new office. You could be starting a new job. And service and productivity is now going to increase, and you're going to be quite busy. And this is about employment changes, which are good, but it feels like they've been delayed. And I've talked to a lot of Scorpio risings that have been like, oh, work is slow, or, you know, I haven't been working, or I haven't gotten any callbacks. Now you're going to start seeing that stuff happen, but you have to be persistent. You have to literally knock on doors, go to meetings, shake hands, put yourself out there, and be willing to do work that may be very humbling for you. Focus on body wellness and anything that's connected to also your routine, just in general, your schedule too. And I think that if you're driven during this new moon to improve your daily life, you'll see over about 6 months, that's really going to be the theme. And it's really energy for work and health, which is very high. And you may start like an intense fitness routine or take on a big work project. Just set intentions for your health and your routine and stick to it. That might mean that in order to get certain work done, you know, you have to set certain things aside. Or you might realize that a lot of this is about your emotional health or things that are going on at home, and you have to kind of take a little bit of a step back from work so you can prioritize your home and your family needs. And start the workout plan, organize your life, you know, begin a work project with passion. And you guys will have to let me know what happens, because you'll see this energy kind of before the new moon even comes in. As soon as Mars goes into Aries and it starts coming into conjunction with Neptune, you're going to be like, how do I have time to do it all? And then as it's approaching Saturn, which will be a couple days after this new moon, it'll be something about you kind of feeling like you're hitting like a scheduling issue, or, you know, a restriction or a limitation, and it's a delay. But I would say just be patient, keep pushing beyond that. And persistence will pay off. Like, I would 100% use this for the next month to be hitting the gym personally. But let's see what the cards say. Oops, that one jumped out. So I got the Seven of Swords, which is interesting. I could see this from a couple different perspectives. There you go. So enemies, right? Weird traditional astrology stuff. Hidden enemies are going to be more your 12th house, but like just enemies in general can be seen through the 6th house, and people who like cause you problems, or there's like challenges. And it can also be with the Seven of Swords, what you can and cannot trust. So do you trust yourself when it comes to your health and your habits? Are you deceiving yourself and telling yourself what you're doing is healthy, but it's really not? Are you overworking, right? Are you drinking? Are you drugging? Are you vaping? I mean, like, vapor is very much Neptune. Mars is connected to smoking. It could be drugs, medication, all the little things that we hold on to that we're like, I just need this as my vice to get through it. It's almost like it's telling you, like, don't deceive yourself. Like, there are some things that can be kind of secretly hidden that's blocking you from having better health, or from better productivity, or from being able to feel like you are able to feel good. It can also mean that there could be some underhanded stuff that could be going on at work. So just keep an eye out for that. Make sure that everything is like what it seems to be in terms of where you're working, your schedule, or who you're working with. Watch out for deception, which I kind of have to put out there with Mars and Neptune kind of meeting. But I don't necessarily think it's being deceived by other people. Other people is going to be more Venus, and Venus is going through Taurus. It's more about, are you telling yourself that you're healthy, but you're not really adopting those lifestyles? Are you telling yourself that you're productive, but you're not really getting things done? And really trying to kind of bring your attention to that, so that way you're not kind of blindsided by some changes that can kind of happen in your everyday life. So good luck, Scorpio. I hope it's a good one for you guys. Let me know what happens. For Sag and Sag rising, you guys are going to do this new moon in the sign of Aries, moving through your natal 5th house in a fellow sister fire sign. So a little bit easier for you guys to navigate than some of the other signs. Obviously, the 5th house is one of the better houses in astrology. It deals with creativity, it deals with joy, it deals with romance, children, self-expression. All of these things are on fire. This is where you're setting your new intentions. Mars also rules your 12th house of anything that's hidden, subconscious, and behind the scenes. So it can be a very peak period where, you know, creativity is coming in, new romantic opportunities are coming in. Maybe you're facing your fears when it comes to romance, or kind of, you know, creating things and putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. I would say the sextile to Pluto is interesting, especially if you're a Sag rising and you're having like a blog, a podcast, a YouTube channel, you know, an app. Something that is you're using digitally to either create, share, or help other people, you know, when it comes to their mindset. It could also mean that this is really strong for traveling and meeting people, like romance, dating online. It could also be about education and children. Really, there's a lot of things that you could do with this new moon. But in a nutshell, you know, Mars is really kind of highlighting where there's a lot of untapped creative potential, or that you're finally working through blockages when it comes to having fun, experiencing joy, you know, feeling like you're in love, and creative projects can begin. Romance and dating is very much activated during this cycle. Children or pregnancy matters can be a huge theme as well. And it's kind of like a double-edged sword because, you know, Mercury rules relationships and it's in your 5th. So it's a lot of like your relationship to your children or talking to your partner about children, or where like relationships are maybe getting tested as a result of dealing with kids. And then you also have Mars that's approaching a conjunction to Saturn. And it may mean that it's bringing up for you, you know, through your creative process or dating, like issues connected to the inner child, healing the inner child, things that you dealt with when you were younger where you didn't feel recognized or seen or kind of like cared for. And so I do think that this is beneficial. Like if you're a Sag or a Sag rising and you're wanting to get pregnant, right? This would be like an intention where you're like, what issues do I have to heal revolving around that before I'm ready to expand my family? Or if you're wanting to date again, how do I learn to heal, you know, my heart and love myself before I can put myself out and date other people? So watch for fun and pleasure increasing. It's also about taking risk in your self-expression and really following your passion projects. I think that what's kind of cool for you guys, especially if you're a later degree, you know, it's trining you. So you're going to lean right into, okay, I love doing this thing. It makes me feel happy. You know, I feel like I'm creating and it's artistic, but it's also therapeutic. And even the earlier Sagittarius, you guys are going to have some trines to Mercury, Mars, and Saturn where you're going to have like, you know, this serious kind of mindset when it comes to your kids or dating, or when it comes to having fun. You're going to be like, I need this. I got to have it. This is what I'm doing. And there's a lot of passion and motivation that's going to kind of come through that. I would say even if you're creative and your romantic life gets a little intense, don't shy away from the intensity. Focus on using that as motivation to focus on joy and like bringing more joy into your life, that you're serious about having fun. And maybe you're pursuing like a lover more boldly, or you're throwing yourself into your art with passion. Regardless of what this is, you know, start that creative project, ask somebody out, play, get out there and be serious, because it's about what makes you feel alive. And also it's something that's very personal to you. Only you can create it if you have Aries in the 5th house. And so nothing will come to fruition unless you're like, yes, I have to be in the process of playing. So if you're not willing to play, you know, the game, you're not going to potentially win. So you're going to have to try a little bit harder when it comes to taking risks, anything with like speculative investments. Obviously, if you're wanting to have your own business, that stuff is going to take time, but you will see that this is like the beginning process of that growth that's going to be really lasting, I think, for you all year. All right, Sag, let's see what the cards say for you about this Aries new moon. What advice can we give them? Oh, you got Judgment card too. Wow, you and, what is it? You and, who was it that got that? Was it Aries? I think it was Aries. Cool that the fire signs got this. I mean, I think that really it's just kind of like now or never, right? Like when I pull this card, I'm like, okay, I know that it's time. Like I know I should be doing this thing, and like I'm being pushed the precipice. And so certainly, and I've been talking to a lot of Sag and Sag risings about this. A lot of them who have been like, you know, I've been holding out on having kids, or, you know, I've got this childhood wound, and because of that, I don't ever want to date, or, you know, I have been at odds with one of my children, or I've always wanted to play an instrument. And now they're all realizing like, no matter what I do, there's this block until I overcome this challenge or this hurdle. And so it's pushing you to get serious about trying to do these things. And I would say now is the time. Trust your instincts. You're a fire sign, you know, especially with some of the trines that, you know, yes, are some of the things that you enjoy the most or love the most going to require a lot of effort? Yes, children do. Being self-employed does, you know. Dating does, it takes time, but I think that if you approach all of these things seriously because you're trying to be more heart-centered and you want that long-term joy, you know now is the time to, well, kind of get the show on the road. So I hope it's a good one for you guys. I remember those transits a couple years back when I had that like Mars and Saturn and all these planets going through my 5th house, and it materializes me coming back onto YouTube, you know, and I was like, man, this is going to take time, but in the end, it ended up playing out pretty well. So let me know what you guys are creating. All right, Capricorn and Capricorn rising, you guys are going to be doing the new moon in the sign of Aries in your natal 4th house. Capricorn, if you have anything 26, 27, 28 degrees, you're going to feel this square, okay? And that means there's just pressure kind of going on with the new intentions at home. Equally, you're feeling this because Mars and Saturn are coming into a conjunction, and Mars is the faster moving planet. So you're going to feel slightly under attack. And so I say that kind of like jokingly, but like seriously, you're going to feel like you're under fire, either with something going on in the home front or something that's going on with your family, something where there is this quick, sudden pace that's developing with something that's changing at home. Now, obviously a new moon in the 4th house, you know, the moon is at home here. It feels very comfortable being in the 4th house. And it's connected to Mars, which is also your 11th house ruler. So it can mean that there is a lot of focusing on going after your goals when it comes to your home and your family and your living situation. So that's all being activated. What I see under a new moon, typically in the 4th house, is like people are going, okay, you know, I want to renovate my kitchen. I want to relocate. I'm wanting to find a new apartment. I want to spend more time with my family. I want to go back home, that kind of stuff. So those things can happen, and that can be the theme over the immediate next 2 to like really, 2 weeks to 4 weeks, but really 6 months. And if you're moving or renovating, you may begin. Family dynamics are definitely going to be shifting, and you're going to feel like emotional healing is at the root because Chiron is involved. And it's really about creating security and safety for yourself, and maybe parental relationships that are evolving. So like having to help and kind of step in and take care of parents, being a parent yourself and being kind of tested in that department, and finding inner stability. I'm going to tell you, even with like, you know, if let's say there was no new moon in Aries taking place, right? Knowing that Neptune's now in your 4th house and you're like imagining what your new home looks like or your new living circumstance, Mercury is there where you're trying to figure out like how you're going to get there, and then Mars is meeting Saturn, you are going to feel coming into mid-April that there is almost this impossible task that's at hand with your home or your living situation. And if it's not, if you're like, no, I'm fine, it's my mom or my dad, or you know, maybe it's something where it's just more emotional, where I'm feeling like I'm just kind of at a standstill. There is something that is going to force you to deal with home and family karma. And I would encourage you to show up for that and be willing to heal some of those generational kind of issues that are kind of unfolding. The positive is that, you know, Mars is sextiling Pluto. So you feel like you've got the funds, the finances, the means to be able to go, yes, I'm going to sell my house, or I'm going to buy something new, or I'm going to renovate, or I'm going to pick up and move, you know, and you have the capability of being able to do that. You've been preparing for this. So you're really driven under the new moon to create a home. And that can mean physically or emotionally. Cancer or the 4th house is kind of like the shell. So the energy is directed at family matters. You know, watch for conflict at home, watch for channeling that into something that you can build and like collaborate and work together. And you're kind of like the person who is, I think, the party coordinator of some of these changes with Saturn going through the 4th house. And my tips for you would be to set intentions for your living situation, your emotional foundation. Start the home project, address the family issues with courage. Be willing to get outside of your comfort zone in terms of where home looks or kind of feels like. And if you can do this, I think it's going to be really beneficial for you guys in the long term. Some of you guys won't have a move or relocation until Saturn leaves Aries, so it could be 2 years. Some of you guys are just undergoing this now. Others are having to go back home and deal with like putting out some family fires. And so if that's kind of happening, being called home is very common when you have Saturn that's in your 4th house. Like I remember when I had my Saturn transit in the 4th house, it was my Saturn return, but I had some similar aspects like this. And it was like, you know, I knew my grandmother was declining, and I was talking to my family about it, and I was just like, I just have to muster up the courage and just like put everything else on hold and like, you know, be all hands on deck with family. And that's what happened. And thankfully I did that, and going home under several Mars Saturn transits in my 4th house was very interesting because it forced me to go home, but there were certain things that I was able to wrap up karmically and heal that almost unblocked things for me, like in other departments of my life. So roll with the punches, be willing to do those do-it-yourself projects at home, and set those intentions for healing your roots, okay? Let's pull a card for you guys. Let's see what we can tell you about this. What does Capricorn and Capricorn rising need to know about this new moon? Wow, 5 of Cups too. You got that as well. Look, you know, having Saturn and Neptune in the 4th house is like, it's serious business. And it means that you have to get serious about kind of dissolving some of these old disappointments and these hangups that you have revolving around home. I can imagine some of you guys are like, I just didn't imagine, living where I'm living right now. Or I didn't imagine moving back home, or, I've been dreaming for my own space or my perfect space, but there's been some disappointments and some delays. Yes, because you're Saturn, and Saturn's been meeting with Neptune, so it's not really planning out the way you thought it was going to plan out. But I guarantee you guys, whatever the sacrifices are that you're making now, they're really going to start to pay off over the summer. And with that card, like I said with one of the earlier readings, I was like, be appreciative of what you do have. When you get too sucked into, I don't have this, I don't have that, I don't have this, you start to feel very heavy emotionally. And I feel like what a great time to be really, really focusing on like emotional healing. Like, even though it has nothing to do with your 8th house, I mean, the sun is your 8th house lord. I mean, family counseling, family therapy, like making a decision that if you can't come to terms and resolve some of this stuff, then you're going to move on, and you may figuratively or literally move depending on how this plays out in your life. I mean, it's a difficult card to kind of pull for this for sure, but I kind of anticipated this for a lot of my cardinal signs. So especially if you have anything, the early degrees of Capricorn or the very end degrees of Capricorn, you're going to feel the squares. But what if it's calling you back home to be able to heal that wound, to deal with it, and also make peace with things? Like, for example, I've seen people who have Chiron in their 4th house, and they will have Saturn go through there and Mars go through there, and they'll tell me, well, I was at odds with a parent, and, I got called and they were on their deathbed, and we were estranged, we hadn't spoken in years, and then they go home, and then, they see the family, they see their parent, and like they're able to have forgiveness for them, and they're able to spend time with them like in their last moments. And so this isn't me saying that's going to happen for you per se, but I'm saying that there has to be this clearing that's going on in order for you to truly have your new beginning. So don't run away from the opportunities to be able to heal that stuff, okay? Hang in there. Let me know, Capricorn, what happens for you guys under this new moon. Aquarius and Aquarius rising, you guys are going to be doing this new moon in the sign of Aries in your natal 3rd house. The house that deals with the mind. It's about short distance trips, learning, anything that deals with your siblings, your cars. And obviously it is ruled by Mars, and Mars is in this sign, and Mars is applying to a conjunction with Saturn, which you're going to feel because that's your traditional ruler, and it's sextiling Pluto in your sign. So you have a little bit more support in that sense. Well, what do I see when I have like a new moon here? Well, we're obviously tying in the themes of Mars from your career into your 3rd house, and it's about how you're writing, how you're thinking, how you're speaking. It's about contracts. And really just your mind getting activated. And it's like having a fresh start when it comes to how you communicate and connect with the world. Now, when we have this new moon that's going to be coming in, some of you guys are going to feel like, yeah, I'm starting to focus on writing. I'm going to be starting communication projects. I'm launching websites. I'm taking new classes. I'm traveling. I'm moving. It is possible that you're learning something new. And with Mars being there, coming in conjunction with Saturn, you're learning a new language, maybe you're learning a new, a new skill. Maybe you're learning how to use new software. Maybe you're learning how to drive, right? Or you're learning something that's going to really enhance how you can communicate and connect with other people. Siblings and neighbors can come into the focus, and social media and networking, new beginnings can be good here as well. And really it's curiosity that's driving you forward, because you're going to see that this is a curious house, and Mercury and Mars are there. So you're feeling very confident maybe in giving presentations, speaking out, sharing what's on your mind, just being very front and center and just very kind of swift with your communication. The sextile that we see to Pluto is great because you're personally changing and transforming, and so you're feeling a little bit more willing to be bold and take risks in how you kind of express yourself. Your mind is very sharp here. And I think that there can be something really profound, like a story you can share with other people about where you overcome like a challenge, or where you were able to rise above something and heal something, or feel vindicated in some way because you have not strayed from the path of being an individual, speaking your mind, being kind of different. You may also find that your communication is more direct, and you're driven to learn to speak and connect locally. I would just watch your tone, like watch the verbal stuff, because Mars coming into conjunction with Saturn means that there could be conflicts with parents, authority figures, or with siblings or neighbors. Slow your roll when you're driving too. Like, don't be doing, pedal to the metal. Don't rush, because I could see some people having some issues both with speeding, with being reckless in cars. I could see people that are saying things too quickly or signing things too quickly or just reacting impulsively that can get them into some hot water. And I also think that this is about watching your words and choosing courage over conflict. There's a way to stand up and express yourself and stand for what you believe in without feeling like you need to be combative or confrontational. Start the writing project, right? If you need to take a course, if you want to start a podcast, a website, maybe you need to reach out and squash something with a neighbor or a sibling, and just assert your ideas in a much bolder way. And really, I mean, you're going to reap the reward of this Pluto. You're going to learn that part of being a leader, part of being an individual or somebody who is successful, who's at the top of it all, stems from choosing your words wisely, and that there is a way to be firm and to be mature and to be bold, but you don't have to talk over people, you don't have to rush, you don't have to argue. It's about kind of, slow and controlled ways of communicating and thinking to get your point across. And maybe saying less is more. I think Mars and Saturn is saying less is more. You don't need to say a lot to get people to take you seriously. It's about being articulate, being well-informed, knowing yourself, and knowing exactly what you have to say in very few words, I think is going to be like one of the keys of this. So let's take a look. Let's see. Certainly Uranus at 29 degrees too. You're feeling like, man, some of you guys might be on the road with this new moon, or you're contemplating moving, or you feel like you have to just quickly, move or sign a lease or make a change, because Uranus is at that critical degree where you're probably feeling like you just need to get out of the house or you're going to go crazy. So let's see what the card is for the new moon in Aries for my Aquariuses. You have the Empress card, which is cool. It's completely different than some of the energies that we see with like all this like Mars, Pluto, Saturn stuff. Very masculine in air and fire signs. The Empress is more Venus. And so if you look at this, Venus is approaching a conjunction to Uranus. You'll see that a couple days later. But what is the Empress? Women, mothers, abundance, beauty, values, things that deal with mothers, grandmothers, sisters, wives, and prominent women in your life. And I'm kind of thinking like, maybe you're just more passionate about talking about what you love and what you value. And with Venus conjunct Uranus, it's freedom, right? Freedom to express myself the way that I want in relationships or where I live or my home. It can mean that women are playing a prominent role in some of the changes that you're kind of going through in your life. It's also about new life. And so this is a new moon. And so Mercury coming into conjunction with Saturn means that you might be getting some serious thought to, what am I growing, right? My audience, my family, my income, like any of these things can be something that you're thinking about, and you're just feeling a little bit more passionate and assertive after going after what you want. But focus on what's growing, what you're opening up to, what beauty is coming into your life. And I feel like that's going to help you soften some of the words in the new moon. Good luck, Aquarius. And for Pisces and Pisces risings, you guys are doing this new moon in Aries in your natal second house of money, value, self-esteem, security. This is your money manifestational moon, okay, that you get once a year. Obviously, there is just a ton of planets that are in your second house. It is just a monster of a financial kind of focus in all of the best ways. What I think about is when you have a new moon here, obviously Mars is kind of in the mix. So there's both a sense of spending money, but also being conservative with money because it's coming into conjunction with Saturn. Mars also rules things like travel, things connected to education, legal matters, publishing. And so you might be investing yourself, your time or your energy, or even your money into higher education, traveling. Maybe you're spending less money because you want more experiences. It could also mean that there is this focus on, your self-worth becoming activated. So new income streams are things you're manifesting. Self-worth strengthening, especially with the Sun conjunct Chiron, believing in yourself, knowing your worth. Values needing to be clarified because Mercury is conjunct Neptune. Material resources potentially increasing. Financial action being required, and knowing and asserting your worth. Now, where it gets interesting is obviously you're ruled by both Jupiter as well as Neptune, but Mercury and Neptune are very close. You can be having a lot of financial conversations with partners, with relationships, with financial advisors, with even like clients or people who, you transact with. And it's about clarifying, how much are you giving me? What is the exchange rate? Or, did you pay me? Or did you receive that? Can I get this? And so there could be a little bit of like a battle for, having to get what is owed to you. And I would say watch out for that. Lean into the sextile with Pluto, where a lot of this is about feeling like you're releasing any control over any particular outcome. You're just really believing that, you know, it's not going to be just about surviving. It's going to be about thriving. And for a lot of my Pisces risings, I've told you guys, you know, you will see the value over the next several weeks of Mars and Aries in investing in the right things. And it might even be investing in yourself or in a business. But with Saturn being there, there are certain things that you're going to go, no, I don't have the money for that. Or I'm budgeting and I'm actually kicking that subscription out, or I'm not spending money on this food, or I'm being more conservative with that thing. And it's going to be about a test of whether or not you're going to make some kind of impulsive decision or purchase. And also it's about facing the music. And if you have been in a situation where money stuff has been really tight, now it's going to get even more serious. And that's because of the conjunction with Chiron. So it can mean that, you know, it's pushing you to start a creative side hustle, because the sun can be about a creative business. It could be something that you enjoy more, or really just reassessing what your worth is, you know, how much you want to charge for a product, what you want to, you know, be getting paid an hour, what your salary, you know, expectations are. And you're driven to make money. That's the good thing. And feel secure, but it's going to come from a place of being like, it hasn't felt that way, and now I feel like I have to, I must do this. So you have to fight for what you're worth and take bold action around income. I would be setting intention around abundance and self-worth, right? Affirmations, I am valuable, right? I am healthy, I am wealthy, I'm wise, I'm capable, I'm strong, I'm flourishing. And you have to remind yourself that, and probably you're doing it on a regular basis already, but it's really going to kind of kick into overdrive, because your belief about yourself and your worth is changing, right? With that connection to Mars. It's also about maybe asking for a raise, or like I said, starting a side hustle. Investing in yourself and knowing your value, I think, is really going to be the key here for you guys. And I do think that you will see it definitely play out into your favor, especially when we're getting into like the full moon vibes, because you're really going to be getting to a point where you're reserving more for yourself and not feeling like you're spreading yourself so thin for other people. So you got to cover your needs first. All right, well, let's see what we can tell Pisces and Pisces risings about this new moon in Aries. Love it. Knight of Wands. You're like, yes, I'm ready to kind of like get the show on the road. This is very Mars and Aries too. So certainly Aries, Leos, or Sagittarians can kind of like play a role in some of these things that you're doing right now. But I think that with Mercury and Mars, it's very much about going after what you want and being more direct and assertive with other people about what your needs are and what your non-negotiables are. That could be in money, relationships, values, you name it. Action and travel. So I think that you would be willing to spend money on education or travel. And I think that there might be a sense of you going, like, you're making an impulsive decision about one of these things, but you feel like it's actually going to be beneficial for you in the long run. So if you're learning new ways to make money, if you're learning about trading or starting businesses, or you're investing money in opening LLCs or anything like that, I think it's positive. And I think that you guys are going to feel very inspired, and you're going to have to make a lot happen with very little. So start small. I've seen some Pisces and Pisces risings that are starting businesses, and I'm like, yeah, you don't need brick and mortar right now, you know, or you don't need to be spending a lot of money, or you don't need to hire a team. You need to do as much of this as you can on your own to try to be conservative and see how it grows and see how it develops. And you'll watch for some of the expansion stuff that's going to be happening over the summer when Jupiter goes into your 6th house. That will expand. Okay, do I get an office? Am I hiring people? But right now you're a little bit of like a one-man team. So keep the momentum going. Feel really focused on, putting in a lot of work and effort. And I do think it's going to pay off, and you're also going to have some fun and adventure along the way. Hope that's helpful for you, Pisces. All right, guys. Well, this is one heck of a new moon in Aries. I always put these out early. You guys always see them after we have the most recent full moon, but I really wanted to do this one early because I think by the time we're getting to it, it's not going to be something that we have to wait for. You're going to see that pretty much mid to the end of April, it's just hitting all of these boxes of some of the things that I have said. But, we continue on, we grind, we hustle, we don't let Saturn get us down, we just pace ourselves. And I think that it's going to be quite a powerful portal with all these planets that are going to be in Aries. Now we're being called to lead. We're being called to start, to take action and be who we truly are, even if it disappoints other people and kind of strays from their expectations. So remember the Chiron connection. Your wounds become your wisdom. Mars and Saturn are going to be, kind of busting our chops, but something that is pushing us to focus on something that's going to be long-term, not necessarily short-term. Listen to your intuition, obviously, because it is guiding some of the direction that you take, and expect the unexpected with Uranus at 29 degrees. It's about performing your truth and not what the audience expects. So there's going to be some surprising turns that are going to be happening out in the world, where I think people are going to be very surprised to see the leaders, the individuals, the people that they follow are just now suddenly speaking a very different language and taking a different path. But this is our moment to begin. So light your candles, set your intentions, use this new moon because it is powerful to really focus on change for the next 6 months. If this video helped you at all, please give me a thumbs up and consider liking and sharing. Drop your comments in the comment section. I'd love to hear your rising sign. I also want to hear what's happening for you guys, what intentions you're setting, what mountains are you trying to move, right? Saturn is very much the mountain. So we can talk about where we're seeing challenges, but we can also possibly give each other feedback, and you might feel inspired to see that other rising signs or sun signs are going through some of the same stuff, and share with other people, because we're going to help inspire each other. Sending you guys lots of fierce love during this, this new moon. I hope it's a good one. And if you guys would like to join me, I'm actually going to be doing live readings tomorrow on Friday. I'll be here at 6 o'clock p.m. That's Central Time, so it's 4 p.m. Pacific, 7 p.m. Eastern. And I'd love to chat with you guys about like what's moving and shaking. We're going to be doing tarot readings. Next week will be astrology as we get closer to this new moon. But if you guys want to get a reading, come and hang out. I'd love to see you, and it's always a good time on Fridays. So like, comment, share, and subscribe. Enjoy the rest of your week. I'll see you here tomorrow on the live, and take care.